Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for Monday, May the 8th. This time I'd like to ask Reverend Tom Murdoch if he would offer our invocation and then lead us in the pledge. Please stand.
Holy One, as always, we come seeking and asking for your presence, a spirit that comes to grant us wisdom. We ask for open hearts and open minds as we work together for this whole community. Help us this night, as always, to recognize that we have been gifted a wonderful place, a beautiful community, rich in so many resources, rich in wonderful people. May tonight, once again, we find a way to move forward in our community to bring us even closer together. We ask for your blessing in your holy name. Amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend Murdoch. I'd like the city recorder to call the roll.
Allmonger. Here. Berry.
Here.
Swift.
Here.
Ellis.
Here.
Lamb.
Here.
Mathis.
Here.
Wilson.
Present.
You have 7 present. Thank you. This evening, I'd like to start with the proclamation recognizing the National Police National Police Week of 2023 and to honor the service and the sacrifice of the law enforcement officers that were killed in the line of duty while protecting our communities and safeguarding our democracy. Whereas there are more than 900,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities
Tullahoma Utilities Authority now has a branch at 501 West Lincoln Street. The drive-through only branch located in the old Citizens Tri-County Bank will be open on utility and light to bill due dates and the day before and after a TUA observed holiday. Check a complete list of dates at tullahomautilities.com.
Never miss your favorite shows again.
For an additional $12 a month, along with your digital television service, LightTube Cloud DVR lets you record up to 8 programs at the same time. Receive 500 gigabytes of cloud storage and whole home DVR. Call TUA Customer Service to add LightTube Cloud DVR to your digital television. Tullahoma Utilities Authority now has a branch at 501 West Lincoln Street. The drive-through only branch located in the old Citizens Tri-County Bank will be open on utility and light-to bill due dates and the day before and after a TUA observed holiday. Check a complete list of dates at tullahomautilities.com. Never miss your favorite shows again. For an additional $12 a month, along with your digital television service, LightTube Cloud DVR lets you record up to 8 programs at the same time. Receive 500 gigabytes of cloud storage and whole home DVR. Call TUA Customer Service to add.
And work and effort was put in place to have that to be done, and it is much appreciated. Every time I enter a school, whether it's a student, an adult, be it a parent or staff member, there are wonderful things shared about that. A few highlights from this year before we get into the presentation here. Hoping you can see some things so the public can view. There we go. Let's go back. So we continue our work on our strategic plan. This strategic plan can be found on our website at www.tcsedu.net. Go to the district link and it will connect you right to our strategic plan. So we are working on 3 priorities: facilities and school-to-work pathways and virtual programming. Just to give you a bird's eye view, when you go to the website, if you see green check marks by an item, that will signify completion. A yellow star is it's ongoing. If it is not marked yet, it's not quite there yet. This plan takes us through 2026. So we've got a couple of facilities and maybe taking a delay on switching. Well, all right. You can imagine there's school-to-work pathways there and virtual programming, so that's something we're very proud of. I want to get to a visual image of Farah. That's something else that's been going. Oh, there we go. We're switching. Thank you to whoever's helping there. If we can get it to, okay, there you go, school-to-work pathways. What you can see there is there's a lot of work happening in that particular item. And our virtual program, just so you know and the public knows, we are adding 8th grade to our virtual school next year. That has been approved at the state level. And so we have now added our first-time, full-time middle school teacher, Miss Dilly, who will be joining our staff there. So Farah, wow, Farah has taken much, much longer than anticipated. from getting contracts finalized to securing a construction manager to getting renderings in a place where we believe it is right and correct and appropriate. So we are finally now fully in pre-construction phase. I just want to point out to you, let's use this image here. If you are looking at the image in green, that is the new part of the campus. If you look to your bottom left corner and you see tables there, in that shape. That's the kindergarten pod currently. That's going to be changed into a dining room for our students, and they're very much looking forward to that. We had to go back to the drawing board quite a few times. Cost was certainly a factor, and the space and the area of land was a factor, so we are tapping more into the building than we initially thought we would, but there are exciting times ahead. We know that they will be working on some grading and demo this summer, taking us through August, and then December should be in full construction of the new campus. So we're excited about that. We actually are waiting on the 200 iterations of this particular floor plan that will be coming soon. So there's just an update there. To harken back to last time when I met, we did add a full-time athletic director this year and a part-time athletic bookkeeper. That has proven to be very positive. We have added a Better Way Athletics, a program into our athletic division that has lots of professional learning modules for coaches and parents and athletes. That's also been a positive enhancement. We have a second school that's been named a Purple Star School. Tullahoma High School was our first Purple Star School this year. Robert E. Lee will be named a Purple Star School. That event is May 16th. Feel free to stop by Robert E. Lee at 9 a.m. on the 16th for that presentation. A Purple Star School is a school who exemplifies great care to military families and students as they integrate into campuses. It is an application process. There are things that the school has to do or show to get that accolade, but this has been earned by a second school. We have continued to have state level and national level recognition in all areas, academics, clubs, organizations, and sports, so it has really been a great year all around. Some of the large projects completed in this fiscal year, this budget year. We've had HVAC, ductwork, and ceiling tile replacement at Bel Air, roof replacement and lighting upgrade at Bel Air, painted hallways, and the front entry porch has been repainted at Bel Air. We've had roof replacement at the high school. The tennis court and pickleball courts are almost fully complete. We are getting there. It will be finalized after the season ends, and we will certainly put out a news release about that. We're very excited. That's been a long time coming. We've had parking lots resealed at the high school, West Middle, and Central office. Some projects we're looking forward to in the next year: HVAC replacement and ductwork cleaning at East Middle. We're looking forward to having some central office work, a sidewalk with ramps to ensure appropriate access to our front entry. And as the fair project gets underway, we're going to be reevaluating that space. I think I shared with you previously that we hope to make that space, repurpose it to be more of an early childhood center, which that big open pod works very well for our youngest learners. So we'll be looking at that. Now, in terms of our revenue sources, if we can get that image of the pie chart up, and this will be your first handout. If you want to, you're welcome to take notes on that as you wish. I think it's important that everyone understand how does the budget come to be for Tullahoma City Schools. The largest revenue source for the budget is our state TISA dollars. Previously, those state dollars were BEP funds. Now we've moved to the Tennessee Investment in Student Achievement Act, so it's a new funding model. The BEP was a resource funding model. This is a student-based funding model. So 58% comes from the state, 16% comes from county taxes, 13% from city sales tax, 12% from city appropriations, and then less than 1% from both federal funds and tuition. I always think it's helpful for everyone to understand how does this budget come to be in terms of revenue sources. So some things I'd like to lift up for our plans and intent for the upcoming fiscal year and our budget. We are very excited to be adding 4 elementary assistant principals. Our elementary schools did not have that role or position. It is something that has been desired for some time, and we are fortunate to be able to make that happen. Also, we are excited about a full-time CTE director who will be coming on board. Now, it is the same CTE director who has been part-time CTE, part-time high school assistant principal. That's Jessie Kinsey. So she will be taking on the full-time role. As you know, with our strategic plan, school to work pathways, and you know where we are in today's time, this role of CTE is way beyond just high school and into the community. We are moving down into middle and even in elementary settings, so we certainly need someone full-time to lead this work. Speaking of school to work pathways, we will be adding 2 STEM teachers at the middle school. This will be CTE courses at the middle school. This is going to be funded through the Innovation Model School Model Grant. So that's a grant-funded position for these 2 STEM teachers at the middle schools. We are also, with those innovation dollars, reimagining the library at the high school. It will be a college and career readiness center, so a place for students to come in and work on their own with partners in small groups, and there is the potential of even a small cafe to be within the college and career readiness center. Again, that's also funded through the innovation grant dollars. I noted TVA will be expanding to middle school. Something else within the budget, we are going to expand our classified scale to, instead of ending at a maximum of 15 years of service, it's going to move to 20 years of service. So that will be a change in that classified line. Within the proposed budget, we anticipate a step raise and a 6% cost of living increase. The step raise is for all employees who have not reached the maximum step already. As we compare the 2 budgets, last year's or the current year and our future year, there's about a 1.93% increase to the total budget, which is all revenue driven. Let's see, it's important to note related to TISA, we've gotten 3 estimates. The nice thing about TISA, with this being new, we are getting them every month, which is really helpful to us. We will receive one for May, and then the final should come in June. So we're waiting on those to finalize, and with each estimate, there are some changes to those allocations, but that's very helpful to us as we make final plans. Let's see, Mr. Jordan, Director of Finance, is here this evening. He's here to assist with any questions, so I'll welcome him to the podium, and then I will also welcome any questions you might have for me this evening.
Question from the board.
When you are talking about 6% raise,
Yes.
how much exactly are we talking?
That's a great question, and that is $1,451,000. Something for you to note, there is a new law in place. Every district across Tennessee has to minimally pay teachers by the 2027 school year $50,000 to start. Our starting pay is at 42 roughly right now, so we've got some climbing to do to get to meet that law. Just a side note.
Other questions for the director? If there's no other questions, we thank you for an excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Mr. Jordan, you sure got off light this evening.
Thank you. You all have a great evening.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to the approval of the agenda. The agenda is published and excuse me. Yeah, we do have comments from the citizens. We had one sign in. Any comments from the citizens? If you have comments from the citizens, please come to the podium and state your name and address.
Carrie, K-E-R-I. Last name is McGarry, M-C, capital G-A-R-Y. I'm at 702 East Deckard Street. I'm the one that began the project of making sure the trap houses are out of our neighborhood. The issue with this is due to these bad zoning and constant squash, you have left this neighborhood to rot into squalor. You have caused more than 14 people to become homeless in our community with mental health issues, serious addictions, and left them as zombies in our woods. My life has been in danger, as well as my son and my roommate. Not to even mention the rest of the people on my street and in my neighborhood. I've had a home invasion. This woman could have killed me in my sleep. I got within 3 feet of her with my gun in the middle of the night. Not only is she lucky to be alive, it would have been justified homicide. Now that I am in my one and only forever home, how do you all think I would have felt to clean this woman's brains from my walls and carpet and have to explain to her children in our school systems I had to kill their mother? You should be ashamed for leaving this in such condition. Thousands of used, dirty, hypodermic needles we have cleaned up. Thousands. Not a one is anywhere in our street. We've gotten several of them knocked down. We got a couple more to go. So now we're resorting back to the 2011 plan. You keep doing this. We're holding you accountable. I am not going to pay this city another red cent. You owe me for the hard work that I put in. As a disabled woman in this community at my age, if I can crawl my big 300 pounds up out of a wheelchair and crawl around on the ground to do this, so can you. So before we start planting flowers in flower beds and painting stuff and calling it art, you can go to the DCS office and donate crayons and coloring books right away. They need them, and they need the luggage, so these kids are not having they can have the dignity of putting their very small belongings in a suitcase instead of carrying it on their backs in a trash bag. Don't shame this community. We've worked very, very hard to get it up to par. I am honored to be in a city with such a wonderful police department. Over 40 calls to 911 in less than 4 years. That is so absolutely shameful. They have better things to do. Our jail is not meant for housing. Do you understand that? When I moved here to Tullahoma, we had less than 40 people couch surfing and homeless. We're now up to 97. And in 11 days, we'll be up to 101. Because my next door neighbors are now evicted and addicted and have no help and nowhere to go. And 3 animals are going to end up probably into the shelter again. I don't know what you guys can even say to yourselves at this point. If you vote no on this plan, you gotta go. And because of that factor, I am asking for 4 specific aldermen to recuse themselves effective immediately because I had to do your job. We are here to live in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You put my life in danger. You put all of our lives in danger. So I didn't get my life. Liberty? You think I got the liberty to put up a fence and to keep my property looking beautiful? Do I sound happy to you? Thank you for the PTSD now that I have to sleep with a machete and my gun. You also owe me 9 screens. 1 is bent from them trying to break into my home. You're lucky I'm not making you pay for my high-tech alarm system. And you will approve more squad cars to Chief Jason William. He's got the skills. Why are you not providing him the tools to do his job? I have never gotten the patrol that I have requested because they don't have enough vehicles to come out and see. And I also request that you get on it and get on it now for Neighborhood Watch. And I volunteer for block captain. And I'm asking for Wilson, Mann, Glick, and Almacher to leave immediately. Please turn in your resignations and walk away. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McGurry.
You're welcome.
Is there any other comments from citizens?
Mayor, sorry. Jim Woodard, 2011 North Jackson, and apologize I didn't get my name on the script. And what I'm about to say pales in comparison to what she just spoke. You know, I think we have seen in our community more homeless needs going in my place of business, people that are out on the street, people that are panhandling and looking for support and help. I mean, it's a sad situation. And I think people are reverting to some tactics that might not be healthy. But what I'm about to request is still pales in comparison to that. However, I'm back again before the group, making a request to still reinstate Ms. Costa back on the job. Again, I was up here 2 weeks ago and made that request, and I noticed she's still not been brought back to work. That's another 2 weeks of payroll that my tax dollars are paying for and other tax dollars are paying for. It's also putting a stress on the other payroll people in the city that would certainly love to have her back. And again, I don't think it's, I think we saw in the newspaper that, you know, she was also recognized and won an award for being distinguished in her career. So again, with the budget season coming on, still with needs and employment, and I know we've got openings in our city, so it certainly would be good if we had Costa back on the job. I know its budget times are coming back up. I was at an interesting meeting this past Friday. Again, the discussion for housing starts. Housing starts right now, I think, are only 6. Maybe 6 or 7. Is that about right? Maybe 7. Only new housing starts in Tullahoma. That's really sad. That's sad that we've only got 7 starts in this calendar year. And so young people have got a place to live. They need a place to live. I'm still in for growth and planned development. Planned development. Not just ad hoc, but planned development to go with it. But my request is, again, to move beyond a 2011 plan. Let's look back to the future. Let's go back to the future where we were, and also, again, requesting to put Costa back on the payroll.
Thank you, Mr. Woodard. And who else would like to speak?
Hello. So I was told, I'm Ashley Shockley. I live at 1104 Pickett Drive. I was told last time my tone might have been a little too much. That's just me as a human. So I will keep my tone down this time. And I wrote it down. Good evening, Mayor and Aldermen. I'm here today to have on record 3 issues that I would like to discuss. Item 1. Going over the agenda lately has been frustrating, to say the least. Too many agenda items are worded in an open-ended way. For example, I'll give item number 13, because that's on this week's agenda. Quote, consider declining the South Anderson Street grant. Considering to decline means this will be an open discussion for just y'all. And then just y'all will vote right here and right now based on this discussion. This allows no room for citizen concerns or questions. We don't even know what the discussion is going to be about. This is not only unfair to all citizens, but makes this entire board look unprepared, unprofessional, and makes it clear that you do not care what input the citizens have. Item 2. Numerous times, aldermen here have stated that they are the voice of the people, that they want to hear from us. But what happens when citizens are too afraid to speak to their fellow aldermen? Most do not want to risk being trolled on the internet, have a loss of business, or be targeted on social media from current sitting aldermen, all because they want to ask questions, share their deserved thoughts on our community, or hold our elected officials accountable. What happens when citizens are too afraid to speak up due to retaliation from sitting aldermen? A government where opposition isn't permitted is fascism. I'm going to end on a positive note. Item 3, last but definitely not least. For every one person you show me that has something negative to say about Costa Bryce, I can show you 100 people that will only have the most positive, beautiful things to share about her, and all from personal experience from associating with this beautiful human. Costa is an asset to our community, and Tullahoma is blessed to have her. The citizens overwhelmingly request that you all vote to reinstate Costa as HR Director. Thank you, and have a good night.
Thank you, Ms. Shockley. Any other citizens? Seeing no other citizens wish to speak, we will move into the approval of the agenda. Need a motion to approve the agenda. Alderman Berry? You make the motion to approve the agenda. And a second? You got a second?
I have an amendment I'd like to make to the agenda.
We have an amendment to make to the agenda. Okay?
I'd like to make a motion to amend agenda item 2383, to break that into 7 individual agenda items as submitted to be discussed by the full board and their merit voted upon as separate matters, requiring each alderman in each matter to abstain from voting on items concerning themselves.
Okay, yeah, we have a motion and a second, but we have an amendment to the agenda item. We need a second.
I'll second.
Got a second from Ms. Almacher?
Is that appropriate? One word.
Full board, I mean, yes.
What's your point?
That item involves 3 here, so a second, I wouldn't believe that it would be appropriate for one of them to make a second on that motion. It would need to come from Jerry or myself.
Or you don't tell me whether or not I should abstain. I'm making a second and saying that which, if my name is mentioned, I shall abstain. It is absolutely appropriate.
I believe I was speaking to the mayor, point of order.
I'll tell you that is not covered in Robert's Rules of Order.
If an item, if you have pecuniary interest in an item,
We don't have pecuniary interest in some of the
That's correct.
items.
I'll allow the second. Let's move on. Now we have a motion and a second to, as you point out, to address each one of those items separately. And if the alderman's name is within that individual item, that they will abstain from the discussion or voting.
From the voting, yes.
That's the amendment. And we have a second. Is there any discussion on the amendment? There's no discussion on the amendment. We'll be ready for a vote. Call the question on the amendment. Monica, you have
Should we, is our thing working? Oh, I can cancel. I was just trying to, I have another amendment. So vote on this and then I have another amendment.
before we vote on the first amendment, we'll get the second amendment and take them all together. So we'll take them one at a time, but we'll get them in order. Okay, what's your amendment?
we got to finish.
I think you have to finish this vote and then I'll tell you my amendment.
Yeah.
You're voting on the First Amendment.
Yes, sir.
So what we're voting on is
You're
as
voting on the
amended.
amendment. Just stated.
Just the First Amendment.
Derek Mann.
I'm sorry?
We're voting on the amendment proposed by Alderman Mann.
Yes.
Okay. Has everyone voted? that passes 7-0 on that amendment. Okay, we have another amendment from Alderman Almacher, and your amendment.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion to remove item number 2382 from the agenda.
We have an amendment. Clear the.
I have a motion, so I guess it requires.
I'm sorry, which one?
2382.
Reinstating cost of prices in that agenda item.
We have a motion, we need a second.
There we go. Second.
We have a second from. Have a second from Mr. Mathis. In discussion, we have a motion and a second.
So this is just a vote on removing it as an agenda item for tonight.
To remove it from the agenda item. In discussion on the amendment. Alderman Berry.
Yes. Mayor, I would like to ask for a reason that we're removing this item.
We're not discussing the item, we're only discussing the removal.
I'm asking why we're removing that item.
Well, you jam-packed this agenda, honey.
I did. You added 4 items on here. I added 2.
Yours has 7 subparts.
It only had 1. So there is no, so then.
For right now, I don't think that the conversation is appropriate. So that is.
So I do, Mayor, and I've got the floor.
You asked for a reason.
I believe I did, and you did not provide one. So I did reach out. We did, number one, I think that I'm a little bothered by the effort that went into prior to this meeting between Kurt and others trying to have this item removed. Prior to even the agenda meeting, we reached out to MTAS. MTAS gave an answer that said that both of from their legal consultant, that this motion is perfectly acceptable and we are allowed to discuss and consider it. It was, even after that, attempts were still made to reach out to other agencies to try and get that item removed prior to even coming here. So I think that this is valid to speak about now, and this is why it's valid to speak about now. It's been 87 days today that she has been put on, as these two quoted, on paid vacation. 87 days. And what the motion had read was upon an investigation. So this board has had the opportunity to do an investigation, and we have not done that investigation, right? We postponed that investigation indefinitely. So are we going to sit here for another 87 days, another 6 months, while we have, this is a real person that's sitting out there, and, you know, on February 1st, and this is a quote from a recording, I tell you what, that's just the first. That could be the big excuse for saying, I think we need another investigation into HR. She just gave us our excuse.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. We've gone beyond the point of removal.
I have the floor.
Point of order.
That is why.
Point of order.
What is your point?
My point is, this has gone beyond the scope of whether or not to remove the item from this agenda.
We're
He's
discussing
attacking
the
other
item.
board members and talking about things that are irrelevant. It's gone beyond the scope of the removal.
Back to the agenda. We have reached out to MTAS and to their legal representation, and they have indicated that this is a proper agenda item to bring to the board.
That part was fine. That's not what my point of order is about.
Mayor,
Respect your order. Respect your comments to the amendment.
Mayor, my comments to the amendment is it has One, this is a farce that she is even on leave right now, and it's a farce that we continue. What I was trying to do with this item and the urgency behind that item was to give this board the opportunity to do the right thing. I figured that that probably wouldn't happen anyway, so at a minimum, we're going to get on camera members of this board again not doing the right thing, and that's why I think that there's urgency behind this, because it's just sick. It's sick.
Alderman Marker, you recognize.
Okay, so number one, this is I disagree with MTAS. This is inappropriate because we already have orders in this session that we have voted on. One of them being, this was not postponed indefinitely. This was postponed until a certain thing happened, and that certain thing is the conclusion of the criminal investigation. Now, let me give you an example, guys. This would be the equivalent of me being a teacher and me being under criminal investigation and on paid leave. But I'm going to finish my point.
What is your point?
Insinuating that there's a criminal investigation into Ms. Bryce is incorrect, it's flawed, and it should not be allowed.
That is not correct. We have deposition testimony with us today that can prove that she herself has said she was under criminal investigation. That is incorrect, Mr. Berry. So furthermore, allowing a teacher, or much less a city employee, to come back to work while they are under a criminal investigation would be less than prudent of this board. In fact, I'm not saying she's done anything criminal. In fact, I didn't ask for her to be criminally investigated. The DA showed up and did that all on his own. However, these are the facts, and we have to wait until that can finish so that we can then look at our internal processes to see if anything not criminal was done incorrectly and what sort of, what do you call it, Kurt? What is that called when you have a hearing and a predisposition hearing to determine whether or not there needs to be any corrective action taken. We haven't done that investigation because we don't have our documents back. So I would say that this agenda item is just simply untimely until those certain things take place that we don't have control over. And I'm very sorry to Ms. Bryce and to the rest of this board that hasn't taken place yet.
Alderman Berry, you're recognized again. One more time.
Yeah, I think there's probably a difference in saying that there's a criminal investigation going on and saying that she is being criminally investigated herself. And I don't know if that was what was said in the deposition. I also don't know how you know what was said. I'm assuming that had to do with Alderman Glick's lawsuit against the city, where you're communicating again, which is the whole point of the retaliation here. Because as far as I order,
Point is well made.
I have my own lawyer in that same situation.
Go to the
germaneness of this, what is my understanding, the criminal investigation is members of this board that are being criminally
That is incorrect. I have been not told anything about that I'm under any sort of criminal. That is incorrect, and that's defamation. Do you understand it?
I give you the floor back.
You're out of order.
You
were out of order, and it was my turn to speak.
I had the floor on my screen.
I see no other comments. No one else wishing to speak on this. I will remind you that this has been presented to MTAS and their legal counsel, and they have advised that this agenda item is appropriate. So there's no other comments. We'll vote on your motion to remove it.
Mathis.
That is Lieutenant. Call the question.
Is it vote yes to remove?
Vote yes to remove.
I didn't vote.
I haven't voted yet.
This isn't the right.
Got the wrong one up here.
Change your vote.
Yeah, I didn't vote.
You wish to change your vote?
No, this is the approval. Okay, yeah, I guess we're good. There we go.
It says it again.
Has everyone voted?
Mine says that I did, but I didn't touch the screen.
You need to clear it and have a revote. You ready for a revote?
It still says.
I think you have to change the wording, or it's going to keep just going back to that one agenda item that we've already amended the agenda one time. So I think you need to, say approval of the agenda as amended number 2, or item number 2, or whatever. Remove agenda item 2382 would be the best way to phrase it.
You ready to vote, or do we need to vote again?
Yes, now you're ready to vote.
We have 5-2 to remove the item. Any other comment, any other changes to the agenda? I need a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make one more amendment, please.
What's your amendment?
Because of the length of the agenda, I am going to remove one of the items that I added for this meeting, and that would be the resolution number 1939. We can revisit that at a future date. So move to remove item number 13, resolution number 1939, item number 16.
Need a second?
What does it say? I'll second it. There's nowhere to push the button.
Motion by Hallmarker, seconded by Wilson. In discussion. You recognize Alderman Hallmarker.
I have really nothing to say other than, for the same reasons, I do think this is a conversation that we should have, but I've already made the points in the last one that I intended to make, so I feel like to save time, we should just move forward and we can revisit that at a future date.
Alderman Berry, you recognize?
For those who don't know the resolution numbers, it is a resolution asking district attorney to return our personnel records and documents, and notice that we did not ask for intervention from law enforcement. So we just removed an item saying that because we haven't had that investigation yet, and then the item that's on the agenda to ask for a resolution to ask the district attorney to give us back those documents that they say we can't do our investigation until we do that until we have those documents. We're removing that item now. So I mean, I just don't get what's going on here.
Alderman Wilson, you should be next.
We asked for an investigation into the documents. The district attorney came and took the documents so that he could do his own investigation, and he came to the board and told us that we could not have any access to the documents until he was complete with his investigation. So I'm really at a loss of why we keep having this agenda item, because it was clear that the investigation needed to take place with the district attorney before we could have an opportunity to have the documents back to do our investigation. And I mean, that's end of story.
Alderman Hallmarker, you're still
Yes.
recognized?
The only point I really intended to make is I did want the public to know that I put this in here in good faith to show that I would like for the district attorney to be aware that we do want our documents back so that we can do what we need to do. We're not trying to dilly-dally on that. So we don't want him to dilly-dally. But the main thing in that agenda item that I wanted to point out, and the reason it was on this agenda, is to point out that we did not ask for this criminal investigation, nor the DA's involvement. And, that happened outside of our control. So those points have been made at this point, and I'm sure he's well aware that we'd like our documents back so we can remove that item at this point.
I'll just make just a comment. It wouldn't take us very long to vote on this. It's not short.
I requested to speak.
I'll be recognized. But it wouldn't take long to actually take a vote. It'd take less than a minute. So that's not, timely is not a valid reason for removing it, but I hear your motion. Only let you recognize.
I think it'd be proper to remove it. The DA came and got our documents and said he wanted to do an investigation. I don't think it should be incumbent upon this board to hurry him along in his investigation and be asking for our records back. He's very experienced in doing his job, and he will give us our records back when he finishes his criminal investigation. So I think we let him do his job. If there's an outcome that he finds wrongdoing, then maybe we don't even need to do an investigation on our side. So I think the criminal investigation has to be done first. He knows how to do it. We don't need to tell him how to do it. He's a professional, so let him do his job. And secondly, I will comment, since Alderman Berry said I was trying to have the great lengths to have this item removed, I was requesting information, and I didn't know it went all through the Coconut Telegraph about my request for information. But the reason I did was I don't think it's proper under Robert's Rule of Order to keep bringing back the same item to be voted on over and over again. Otherwise, well, it'll just be on here every week, and it's a waste of the board's time. It's a waste of the people's time.
Any further discussion on 1939? Alderman Berry, you're recognized.
Just a quick point of correction. That item has never been on the agenda. So it has never, show me, what day was it on there?
There
has never been.
The exact item. It matters.
No. You're wrong. And Intel says you're wrong.
Well, they don't know everything. They're not licensed parliamentarians, are they?
They're attorneys, like legitimate ones.
Vote.
Are you?
Give us an opportunity to vote.
We need a motion and a second on the machine.
We got a motion and a second. Vote yes to remove, not to remove. No, not to remove. And that remove is 5-2. Is there any other changes to the agenda?
Yes.
On there.
I thought that it was going to be taken care of. I can't find the front of my agenda. I can't find the first page of my agenda. That's yours.
Yeah. Maybe we need to have meetings to approve the agenda before we have the board meeting.
Yeah. So on item... Where did it go? Oh, sorry. Item number 2384. So I can't do this because I was on the wrong side of this vote. But this is the consider rescinding the vote on ordinance number 1593, an ordinance to adopt the revised 2011 Tullahoma Comprehensive Plan for the passage on first and two readings. That vote failed. So you cannot, when on a negative outcome, your only options are to reconsider or to renew the motion. Our ordinances prohibit renewing the motion, which is what he was trying to talk about a second ago. On a positive motion, you can reconsider, you can rescind, or you can amend a previously adopted motion. So this item and the way that it's worded, the consider rescinding a vote on the ordinance is not a legal motion. So what I would proffer to one of the people who were on the negative side of that is for somebody, one of you, to make a motion to reconsider the vote on ordinance number 1593, and then on the books and by rules and procedure, that will make that item a valid item. Otherwise, it doesn't matter what we can vote on. Anybody can come in here and say it wasn't a legal vote. So
can we just change the wording?
that's what I'm saying, but it needs to be one of the four.
Well, you don't even have to change the agenda item, just change the wording in the item. Move to reconsider rather than consider rescinding.
I'm pretty sure that what I said was change the wording to reconsider the vote on ordinance number. I can't do it, you can't do it, the mayor can't do it. It needs to be one of these.
Actually, whoever put it on here could do it, because it's just a reconsideration.
No, because you cannot reconsider a vote unless you were on the
We are just putting
prevailing.
it on the agenda. That's all we're voting to do, is establish the agenda, and then whoever makes the motion at that point would have to be in the prevailing majority. But whoever puts it on the agenda could be any one of us.
This is simple. Can one of you three just say to amend that
They would
motion?
have to make the motion.
Can one of you make a
Do I have the
motion
floor?
to amend the agenda to reconsider and just be done with
Guess I don't have
this?
the floor.
No, I do.
That's exactly what needs to be done. It needs to be reconsidered.
I will do that.
One of them, the prevailing vote. Is someone willing to make that motion to reconsider?
I can second. She did, I'll second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Reconsider that. Now then, approve the agenda as amended.
We got to vote on that one first.
We'll vote on this one first. We'll vote on this one first. It passes 7-0. Now then, need a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Please vote.
The agenda as amended is approved by a vote of 7-0. Okay. Moving right along. We'll go now to reports from the Aldermen. I'm going to start with you, Alderman Mann.
Let's see. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple weeks ago, I attended our Employee Service Award Lunch at Lakewood. Our interim HR Director, Lisa Shepard, Assistant to the City Administrator, Jordan Wilkins, and our City Administrator, Kenny Pearson, did an outstanding job putting it on. And congratulations again to all the employees honored from 5 years to, I think, 35 and 40 years of service. These are very dedicated, hardworking folks, and we are fortunate to have them and all of our city employees and staff. I also attended the Downtown Lions Club fundraiser at South Jackson. It was a great event, great food, great entertainment. They raised a lot of money in just one evening, and I'll definitely be there again next year. I would encourage anyone who didn't make it to try and go next year as well. I'd also like to acknowledge and congratulate our interim city administrator, Kenny Pearson, on graduating with his master's in organizational leadership this past Saturday. So congratulations, Kenny. We're all proud of you. And then finally, I just want to say something. I mean, this meeting, prior meetings, I think it's no secret there's a lot of disdain and hostility between a lot of us on this board. I just want to acknowledge one person on this board that he and I have voted less together than I have with anyone else on this board. And every week, after every meeting, he comes over, has something nice to say, has a conversation, always makes a point to speak to me in public. If he has had a question or an issue with me, he has always addressed me face-to-face, in person, never on social media, and that's our mayor. And that is an example of how it should be and how we should all strive for it to be with the rest of us. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you for your comments, but they're not deserved. Thank you. Alderman Wilson.
I'll pass, thank you.
She passed.
Pass.
Okay.
For your amendment.
Alderman.
Yes, I too attended the ward service luncheon for our employees and had the honor to speak briefly at the end of that. And, you know, with all this new tech and AI, artificial intelligence, you know, replacing jobs and people, there are just some, you know, people in service industries with our policemen, our fire department, our public works, our ditch diggers, our Sue Wilson, y'all, she's brilliant. I don't think AI will ever be able to replace Sue Wilson. We have some of the most amazing employees who dedicate their lives to our city, and I know that it seems as though I'm quick to critique, but I also want to be quick to praise. And so I thank them for everything that they do. JP's been doing a wonderful job this last week, and Miss Lori, I've heard great things about you and Kenny. The praises just keep coming in. So we're proud to have you guys. We had our budget talks last week, and we, you know, all of the departments, we have a couple of rounds left to go tomorrow, and you know, we're scrounging for money, and there's a lot of things we'd love to do, and a lot of things I know our citizens would like for us to do, and then we have to really balance our needs versus wants this year, and it's going to be hard, but you know, there's a common misconception. I hear people talk about how, you know, we just raise taxes. I did kind of want to address that real quick. We have not raised your taxes. That, you know, what the state decided and the counties decided as far as property taxes, we have nothing to do with that. And the rate, when everything increased and with inflation, it raised it automatically. So the 2011 plan, also, just a quick note on that, the 2011 plan it's a revision of that plan only to be a stopgap because there will be a new plan in 2025. And to Ms. Bryant's point, we are actively working even within that revision to make sure that those land use issues get resolved and that we don't have those issues regardless of what plan is passed in this round of passing. So, you know, hopefully that will ease some of your fears. My fear is that what she described is what we would become with some of the progressive urbanization in the 2040 plan. Every patrolman has a squad car that I know of, but I appreciate the spirited passion of people coming out and speaking on what they believe in. And, you know, we are a constitutional republic, y'all. You elect us to speak for you, and I know sometimes you don't always like what we have to say, but we're doing our best. And I'll tell you, it's not fun to sit in these seats these days. And it's easy to sit out there and you know, armchair observe, but it's really difficult to sit up here, and we try to do the best we can for you. Please continue to reach out to us. Even if you disagree with us, we'll gladly take your phone call. So thank you.
You're on deaf ears.
Alderman Berry.
Mayor, yes, I haven't had any committee meetings since we last met. We had the budget sessions that we attended. I spend my Saturdays and Tuesdays and Thursdays, I float around the baseball fields to try and catch them out there. Saturdays, I generally try to go out and catch the soccer games. This Saturday, I attended the Purple Olympics. Rush Bricken, I think, was there as well. That was a great event. It is always a great event. Then I went to the football clinics. I think they've already got several hundred kids signed up, and they're expecting 500 to 700 kids this year, which is amazing. I'm a fan of football. And then that evening, special shout out to our housing authority and Officer Kenya and several of the off-duty officers. They put together a movie night it was held at the football fields, and thank you to the school for allowing that to happen. It was specifically for those in the housing authority. There were coupons for different items, hygiene packages, there was food. It was an incredible event, and I hope that in the future we'll see more participation from us and from our administration, because these are the kind of events that help build trust, and we need those kind of events. And that's what the community is actually all about. Is we may be a mess up here, but there's people out there in the community actively working every single day where they can actually touch a life. And I agree with what Alderman Mann said, that it does get pretty sticky up here. Some of that reason for needing to reach out on social media or paper or other places is because, as we've seen, we're not allowed to speak up here in public where these things happen. And so, when I believe that what is happening up here is wrong. I believe that some of it is criminal, and we'll talk about some of that stuff tonight. And so when I'm not allowed to speak of it up here and we pull these items from the agenda, I will speak about it in the newspaper, on social media, or anywhere else that I can talk about it at the top of my lungs, because they deserve to know.
We'll wait for the applause there. I'll just like to report on what I've learned since I brought up the state of the cell phone service in Tullahoma, and then maybe ask Mr. Pearson if he could give us any other information on it. I heard from Brian Skelton with TUA, and he said that Verizon has reached out to them and asked for a proposal of putting their transponders or whatever on the water towers of the city. And TUA has given them a proposal to allow them to do that. They have not heard back from Verizon. And I know the city was going to send a letter to Verizon, and I was going to ask Mr. Pearson if he's had any reply to that.
Mr. Pearson, you're recognized, and I know you had some comment. Sending a letter to them is not as easy as you might think.
I still have
we have communicated with them.
I still have nowhere to send that letter to. I've tried to get an address for somewhere to send it to. I keep getting the same automated talk with the person, which I keep copying those transcripts over. But trying to send it to somewhere that will get somebody, I have not had an opportunity to do that.
But the point has been made.
Yeah, and I think we need to redouble our efforts in doing so.
Mayor Pro Tem Mattis.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Well, for me, I've spent some time with TUA and sitting in their board. And Service Awards Banquet was, as you have indicated, the other aldermen have indicated, a very worthwhile event, recognize our worthy employees. Another event that I attended that is kind of near and dear to me, and at least one other person in the room, Ralph Graham, we attended the Arbor Day celebration where we recognized Arbor Day over at the Arboretum. Our Arboretum is second to none. It's a wonderful place for us to be recognized as Tree City. And we had our budget sessions that we attended a couple last week. We got another one to go. So with that, I want to just mention that one of the speakers here tonight, that one of the citizens who spoke, I want to recognize her for her being here. So it's kind of easy for some of us, but for Ms. Carrie McMurray, I appreciate you being here. Appreciate you making the effort to be here. Thank you for being here. I just wanted to tell you that we are listening. Okay.
Thank you very much. Also, I wanted to mention that I have left plenty of messages and began the talks with Vanderbilt to provide us with a rehab center and also a mental health hospital for treatment on a sliding scale basis. Contact Eric.
Thank you very much for your efforts in our city. You recognize it. Okay, with that, I'd like to recognize our city attorney, Mr. Porson.
I'm not to take a lot of your time tonight because we have many things on the agenda to address, but I do want to tell you about one thing. The mayor and I, Mr. Nominiego, have been working with the owners of Harton Properties. As you might know, we initiated a request for the Harton family to allow us to straighten a part of William Northern Boulevard leading into the airport area in order to make a better intersection with another street that leads up to the airport. And in the meantime, they were able to find a buyer that was interested in buying their property there in order to erect a nice hotel. And so we're working with them now for property exchange. Will come up at the agenda meeting next time. On the agenda for the next meeting, it'll just involve exchanging small slivers of property so that we can straighten out William Northern Boulevard and lead it up into a straighter entrance into the airport. That's the only thing I'm going to report tonight. I have other things that are routine things that we're working on.
Thank you, Mr. Worsham. Interim City Administrator is newly graduated Kenny Pearson.
Oh, thank you. The past couple weeks have been really busy. We've completed 2 or 3 budget meetings with the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. Tomorrow will be the finalization of those budget meetings. We did have our service award banquet. I appreciate Alderman Mann and Alderman Hallmarker coming out and wishing those people that have had years of service with us. Like they were talking about, it's 5, 10, 15, every 5 years there's an increment that they are awarded. We had 21 awarded this year. 2 of them had 40 years or more, and 1 had 35 years. It's a great testament to their servitude to this community and their willingness to be here. I did attend the Chamber Board meeting and the Chamber Coffee at TUA. Welcomed our new Parks and Recreation Director on May 1st, which is Monday. Trying to get him moving forward and trying to get some things that have been on our wish list to get completed pretty quickly. So we're working on those things. I also did attend the Arbor Day celebration. Met with Jackie Duncan and Josh Cole about a historic landmark at CD Stamps. Possibly pushing into that. They're doing some more investigation into what it will do to that land if they did get the historic landmark. We also did lose our farmers market manager, so we're going to be looking for a new farmers market manager, which will hopefully help get that on, keep going. I think she's leaving May 15th. She's leaving May 15th to move to Georgia, so hopefully we can find a new farmers market manager.
Very good. Thank you, sir. With that, we'll move into the action items on the agenda and start with the need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion from Mann, seconded by Mathis. Any discussion on this consent agenda? Vote yes to approve, vote for no, vote for no. Consent agenda is approved 7-0. Moving into unfinished business. Tonight we have unfinished business item number 2373. I'll read the caption. For the approval of one of the proposals and the authorize the city attorney to prepare all necessary documents to support the sale of city-owned real property located at 411 East Carroll and set an offer termination date of 45 days from the completion of the paperwork and payment required. At this time, I'd like to recognize the 2 people. There are 2 proposals for that, and I'd like to invite each of them to spend 3 minutes or so to tell us about their proposal. David Wallace is with CCR. Mr. Wallace, are you in the audience tonight? If you would like to take the podium, you can present your proposal for 3 minutes or so. You've passed.
We'll go second. That's okay.
You're recognized currently.
Right. Before I begin, I just want to introduce myself. I am Erin Wallace.
And Daniel Wallace.
And Daniel Wallace, yes. We are the owners of CCR Industrial. Since you've already been given our proposal, I just want to spend my 3 minutes talking to you about our story over the past 7 years. I was instructed that I only had 3 minutes to give a verbal presentation, and I will do my very best to comply. Our company, CCR Industrial, is an industrial sales company. We liquidate a wide variety of equipment and supplies. CCR customers are local businesses and online sales across the country. Throughout our lease, we contacted the city multiple times regarding the leaking roof, and we were told by the city that it would not be fixed. The lease clearly calls for the city to maintain the four walls of the building and the roof. We have spent thousands of our own dollars repairing damages to the facility caused by this leaking roof. And we've also lost a lot of our inventory from the leaks and water damage. After we were told we could not renew our lease, we began negotiating to buy the building, and we reached a number that we were told was acceptable to be presented to the board. Then we were told the building first had to be surplused. Then we were told the city would not sell it outright as the lease describes, but it had to go through the RFP process. Then, after going through the RFP process, the committee was to review the bids and make a recommendation on which one they felt would be better for the city. We were informed that our bid was unanimously chosen and that the committee would be recommending us to buy the building. However, that did not happen. This has been an extremely difficult journey, and the effects have weighed heavily not only on us, but on our 17 employees and their families. Throughout this process, our business has suffered greatly from the first time that it became public that the building was for sale. We started having people talk about us going out of business because we were losing our building. We begged for the signs not to be put out front at our business, but they were, and we started losing sales because of it. Over the past 7 years, we have been quiet tenants, doing our job, paying our bills, keeping people employed, and doing the best that we can to provide for our families. We understand that this building is in the gateway of the city, and we have every intention to restore it back to its best usable condition so it represents Tullahoma in a positive way. We have had multiple contractors come out and have compiled an actual plan to effectively stop the water intrusion and the deterioration of the building. CCR has contractors on standby, ready to begin the work. There's not been a single contractor or representative from any other company come in and look at the condition of the building, take core samples, or even look at the roof. There's no possible way that anyone else has a comprehensive plan on how to repair the building without even looking at it. We are asking this board to sell CCR Industrial the building so we can continue to grow our business at this location, to save the 17 jobs of our hardworking employees, and to continue to be a valuable asset to the city of Tullahoma. So in conclusion, CCR has been operating at this facility for 7 years. We are a proven business that has a tremendous inventory that cannot just be picked up and moved somewhere else. Because we're not a warehouse for storage, we are continuously and actively generating revenue for your city of Tullahoma. CCR is estimated to pay $50,000 in utilities, $28,000 in property tax, and $230,000 in sales tax, as well as other economic impacts that we have laid out in our proposal. We are ready, willing, and financially able to begin fixing this building immediately. CCR has 17 actual employees who are depending on you to keep their jobs and to provide for their families.
Thank you, Ms. Wallace. Thank you. The other proposal came from Dwayne, and Greg Driver is the principal in that. Mr. Driver, you're recognized.
Yeah, I'm Greg Driver, owner of Dwayne Staging Lighting and Sound Company. I've been in Tullahoma and doing business 96, 97, maybe. It's the first meeting I've ever been to. My grandmother used to say that when everybody was not getting along, you need to bring them ice cream. So I think I'm going to bring y'all some ice cream. So we own Stage and Lighting and Sound Company I brought from Nashville to Tullahoma about a year and a half ago. And it's currently sharing with another business I own at 1105 Northwest Atlantic, which was the Smith & Son building. We bought that building. We renovated that building. We've also purchased the 401 building there on Atlantic Street, the old Tullahoma Industries, and we're going to be renovating it. But as I said, Dwayne is a stage and lighting and sound company. We do work for a lot of the major country music artists, other artists as well. We do a lot of specialty events. We have currently signed a contract with NASCAR. We're doing NASCAR work across the country. And the business has grown by leaps and bounds. When I purchased the business, they did not want to move to Tullahoma. The first thing they said was, "Where is Tullahoma?" And so I pointed to it on the map and said, "We're moving to Tullahoma," and that's what we've done. And we've moved people from Nashville down here. And so we have grown to a capacity that we're out of space, and we were looking for another place to go. And part of this business has grown from just providing services for stage and lighting and sound and events to we are now getting into the rental business where we're renting equipment to a lot of these major artists and major events. You can see, I've given you the presentation here, you can see a little bit of what it looks like inside of the building, and then you can also see some of the work we've done on the beautification, painting the building and doing some things that need to be done and had been done for years. This is what we propose for the 401 building, which we haven't started yet. We just received our final renderings, and so we're going to be going to the city about that. And then on the final page, you kind of see what we're proposing for Dwayne. Some have asked me what the name Dwayne, what that means. Well, when I bought the business, a gentleman that ran it was a minority owner in the business, had been in the industry for 20 years. His name was Dwayne. We rebranded that company because everybody in the industry, when they needed something, they'd say, "Call Dwayne." And so our branding and marketing company came up with this idea, and it's so far it's served us pretty well. So that was our idea and our proposal. The economic impact, we tried to comply with the RFP, and it's on the back side, and kind of give you a little bit of an idea. Dwayne is actually not here tonight. They are on the road on an event. But if you wonder what he looks like, you can flip to the last page, and you can take a look at that. So that's where we are, and that's what we were going to use the building for. So I think some of you, know a little bit about it, but I'm open to questions, or if anybody wants to ask me anything, or.
Yes, I have some questions. Approximately how many employees do you intend on bringing to Tullahoma with this industry?
Well, I mean, currently, we're probably running, I don't know, somewhere between, depending on full-time and part-time, we're probably 10, 15 currently, and then we have another temporary set that we bring in that are probably 10, 11, 12 on top of it, but over the next 3 to 4 years, it can easily be upwards of, based on the contracts that we've signed and the contracts we will potentially that we have out there, we could get up as high as 50 employees.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Driver. We appreciate your presentation. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to make an award of contract to sell this building.
Can I add, I got two questions, one for each of them, if I may. I didn't realize on the first one that we could ask a question. Is that?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
The first one is it'd be the same question to both. Daniel, on your sales tax estimates, is that the total amount, the total gross amount, or is that broken down to the county and local?
That's the total.
The total amount. And same question to Greg, Mr. Driver. Is that the total amount of sales tax revenue, or it does say it says county and state, so.
I believe it's broken down to state and county.
State into the county. So 97.5 in total annual. And Mr. Wallace, you're currently seeing 243.
That's our projection for this year, 230.
Do you have an estimate on what last year's was?
I couldn't bring us back, so.
That's okay. That's all I have.
You have questions for either of the presenters? With that, I will entertain a motion to make an award to one of the proposals. Alderman Hallmark.
I move to approve, to move forward. I want to make sure I have one more question before I do this. The total bid price, sales price, which I know is not the only factor, could somebody tell me what those two numbers were? What was the bid price that was submitted for CCR versus the bid price that was submitted for? So CCR's was $300,000 and Mr. Driver's bid was $425,000. Though that's not nearly the thing to consider. I'll go more into discussion after I make my motion. I move to approve the Duane project and authorize the city attorney to prepare all necessary documents to support the sale of city-owned property located at 411 East Carroll Street, and set an offer termination date of 45 days from the completion of all paperwork and payment required, with the understanding that whenever this is talked about in these negotiations, the CCR group, they have an extensive amount of inventory. If this were to pass, they would need, I'd say, probably 6 months to be able to relocate at a minimum, and would hope that Mr. Driver would be okay with that, and we could work, something out. But that is my proposal, is to go with, move to approve the Duane project.
Do we have a motion? Do I have a second? That motion dies for lack of a second. Do I hear a motion still?
Wait,
Motion died for lack of a second.
I seconded it.
I don't have a second.
I was waiting for the thing to pop up here.
Okay, I'm trying to find. Okay, we have a second. Vote yes to approve that motion. You have a question?
A couple things. One, I need to at this time disclose that Mr. Driver, one of the two presenters this evening, has another business, Apex Restoration, that has purchased products from my business, Minuteman Press, in the past. I have no financial relationship with the business Dwayne he is looking to bring to Tullahoma, and as part of that proposal, I would have no financial benefit from him purchasing this building. Therefore, after speaking in detail about this with our city attorney, Steve Worsham, it is his advice that after disclosing this, I would have no conflict to vote on this item.
We have a motion and a second. You ready to vote?
I'm trying to request a speak.
You recognize Alderman Berry?
This is a tough one. When we're sitting up here, it is easy to be guided by maybe emotion but in cases like this, the question is what is going to have the most value to the most residents long term. I almost wish I didn't have to make a decision. But that, when I'm looking at the numbers here, I'm a data and a numbers guy. And when you compare, and I understand that these are just estimates on both sides, but when you look at the estimates and you compare the numbers side by side, without being arbitrary, that's the only way that I can make my decision. But that's what my decision will be based off of, is looking at the numbers, because that's the only way that I can think this is a fair way to do it.
Alderman Margaret, recognize.
Yes. During the course of what took place with CCR, I definitely can empathize with their frustrations. My qualm goes back to way before I was ever involved as an alderman, and the fact that I don't believe, and I feel like if we have other buildings in the same predicament, we need to address it now. We should not be in the rental business. We should not be leasing buildings. This creates too many conflicts for us as a board and an entity, and also it's my understanding that this building is about, and yes, it did have a lot of repairs that needed to take place, but the building is approximately 98,000 square feet, something like that. And we were receiving how much in rent per month? How much in rent, Mr. Wallace?
About $1,200 a month.
$1,200 a month. We've been receiving $1,200 a month. And I'm glad that we were able to give a business a great start.
I believe the previous lease was about.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree with that wholeheartedly. They were paying more than the previous lease, but $1,200 a month for 7 years, I feel like we gave a business a great opportunity to expand and to use that building. But if you're only receiving $1,200 a month, from a business standpoint, we couldn't have afforded to correct the deficiencies in the building on a 98,000 square foot building. Then look at our budget, you guys. We were at budget talks last week. There'd been no way for us to do that. So it put us in a precarious situation and actually a lot of liability, considering we had made promises that there would have been no way we could have kept from the get-go on something like that. So that was not a good lease or something to be in. And, you also think when you lease that building, a 98,000 square foot building, when we do sell it, the good thing is we will be able to recoup some, lost property tax revenue towards the city, that which we also are not receiving. So think about the lost, return to the city in renting. So that's the point I want to make, not just with their building, but others. And then looking at what that could potentially be going forward. And a business, I could lose my building tomorrow. I own a business. I could lose my building tomorrow. Doesn't mean my business has to shut down. Just means I have to recruit and, move somewhere else. And I hope that if this were to pass, that we could help us, any of us, anybody in the audience, anybody that's listening could, help assist this business to continue.
Okay, I will remind the board that the city did have a committee that evaluated these proposals, and the unanimous decision of the committee that evaluated these proposals was to select Wallace, as Mr. Wallace has pointed out. Now, I'll call the question, and for those in favor of awarding the contract to Mr. Driver, vote yes. If not, vote no. We have 5 yeses and 2 noes. Mr. Driver, do you have a new building? Move into new business. And these details of these are noted on your package as to where to find the details. Item number 23-77, consider authorizing the purchase of a 2023 Dodge Ram 1500 pickup truck for the fire department from Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram of Columbia in the amount of $52,202.95. Need a motion. Motion from Barry, seconded by Billy. Any discussion? There's no discussion. Clear the vote. It passes 7-0. Next item is number 2378. Consider the authorization to purchase of equipment to the up to Fit 3 2023 Ford Interceptor police SUVs from Truckers Lighthouse in the amount of $24,106.10. Need a motion. Motion by Barry, seconded by Mann. Discussion? Yes or no? Yes, sir? No. Passes 7-0. Item 2379, consider approval and authorize the mayor to sign a professional services 3-year renewal agreement with Municipal Inspection Partners for an administrative hearing officer. Details on 69. That's a renewal of that contract. Motion from Barry, seconded by Mathis. Alderman Allmark, you recognized.
Yeah, I just have some concerns about this. Okay, so the way I understand this is and somebody could maybe explain it just a little bit better so that the public understands and I understand. But so let's say somebody has a citation on their building for a codes violation, okay? And essentially that goes to court. That essentially would go toward, before this administrative hearing officer rather than, per se, the Planning Commission or the Board of Mayor and Aldermen? Or how does that work? Or is this like a criminal citation, or what is this?
That's correct. He's able to levy liens against the households and enable us to be able to move forward with demolition or anything of that nature, depending on the thing. Butch, would you like to speak a little bit on this?
Yeah.
Butch.
This is something that Mr. Lee Lawson, our former planning codes director, implemented probably 2019, I'm thinking, and it's been an instrumental part of resolving those type issues. I think we have used municipal partners probably 6 times this year, I think, total. But it's been an instrumental part of what we do, and it does. There are those things when we're dealing with condemned or abated structures, it goes before our administrative hearing officer, process a whole lot quicker. I don't want to put you on the spot, Steve, but you've worked through some of this as well, and it's been a pretty good asset to us.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. We recognize the city attorney.
I was involved in the initiation of this project some time ago. This is a statutorily authorized procedure that municipalities can follow. There's an expedited way to deal with these issues without going through the cumbersome and expensive court process that otherwise you would have to do. The only time these matters go to court is if their administrative hearing officer issues an order and it's not complied with, and they ask us to then go to Chancery Court to do that. And that's very seldom that we have to do it. It's very efficient, it's very cost effective, it's fair, and it's all done according to the statutory provisions that authorize it. So I suggest that you all approve this.
Thank you, Ms. Morrison.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Alderman Allen.
yeah, the main thing that I just look at it from a citizen, perspective. Given, even somebody like Ms. Bryant and her situation, and let's say there was a house that, it was because of our zoning issues, and then we tried to condemn it, but they wanted to fix it, and then it went before this hearing officer, and I'm sure we've all heard the old adage, you can't fight City Hall, and I'd say the public's getting better and better at doing it all the time. It's not that I'm trying to make it any easier, but I think this, in some ways, I can see that this might make it easier to potentially violate people's rights or due process. Like, do y'all have any concerns? Have we had any complaints about anything like that?
I have not received any.
Okay, yes.
Mr. Pieri, in his administration of this process, is very, very willing to work with people, and he does that. It gives people a lot of time to comply, and we've had no complaints at all. And actually, I think only taken maybe 2 or maybe 3 cases during this period of time to Chancery Court. So he's very lenient with them and willing to work with people, because the objective is not to get money for the city, but it is to clean up some substandard housing issues in our town. And that's the objective of it, and that's how this gentleman works toward that, and it's working very well, I think.
Thank you, sir. Alderman Berry, you recognize?
I do agree with Alderman Allmacher on some of that. And maybe it's something this board tackles later is, there's somebody I know who got fined, because he can fine up to $500 a day. And it ended up being like 30-something thousand. Now, I know that it got knocked back down to cover costs. So, I'm in favor of having this, because it's really our only way of enforcing. And I'm going to tell on myself here. I filed my campaign disclosures late, and I got fined a notice saying I was getting fined the maximum penalty of law, which was $20,000. And, that got my attention. I had already filed by the time they did that. And so I went up to that hearing, and it was extremely daunting, and it got knocked down to costs. And so I think what this is a tool to say the same thing was for me is, hey, you need to get this done. But an action item I'd like to see, I'm in favor of this, but an action item I'd like to see for this board is an easier process to get that knocked down to, because, we both know somebody who went through that, and it took him 1.5 years, 2 years, to give his mother a heart attack, and it was just a big, not a literal heart attack, but it was a big ordeal. So I'm in favor of this, but let's talk about policy later on how to. It's not a punishment, what it is, but it needs to be a tool to say, get this done. And if you do it, we're good. So.
Are you ready for the question?
Yeah.
That passes 7-0. Item number 23-20 is consider approval and authorize the mayor to sign a contract with the Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security to use a TACAN radio system. That is, there's a fee associated with that, but for these radios, this provider has agreed to waive the fee, so there's no impact to our budget for that. So I need a motion. Motion from Barry, seconded by Brother Lick. Alderman Lawler, you recognize?
After the budgets, I was a little concerned. I mean, I know this is coming out of our money, but to some people have reached out to me. My main concern is if we don't do this now, they're going to force us to do it later, and so we better do it now while we have some funds to do it that aren't coming out of the general budget. So that's all I want to say.
And the fee for this software has been waived, so there's no cost to the budget, no cost to the city for the radios, for the system that we support the radios. Ready to vote? Passes 7-0. Now we'll talk about the money part. Item number 2381, to consider the approval of the purchase of TACAN radio system with Motorola in the amount of $879,227.13 for the police, fire, public works department. Need a motion. Motion from Barry, seconded by Glick. Alderman Barry, you recognize.
To Alderman Allmacher's point a second ago, she's 100% correct. About my first couple years on the board, I sat on the comm center, and I know prior to you being Alderman, we talked about this a lot, and this is a system that all EMS will be moving to statewide. It is a system that every single emergency department service in Coffee County has moved to or will be moving to, and Tullahoma would be the only people in kind of a little island, so the state is eventually going to force this. They're investing millions and millions of dollars into these radio towers, and Tullahoma got out cheap because the people around us are putting in towers, and that makes us a hot spot. I'd say cheap. It makes me a little sick to my stomach seeing the $879, because I think when I first brought this about 7 months ago, it was around $625, and it included radios for everybody. This is several $100,000 more with less radios. But to Alderman Allmacher's point, we're going to have to do it, and it's never going to get any cheaper. That cost is just going to continue to skyrocket, and it's better to come out of funds that were given us by Uncle Sam than out of your pockets, because it's going to happen.
You ready for the question? Yes or no? Passes 7-0. Spend that money. Okay. Item number 2382 has been removed. So we'll move now to item number 22-83. We're going to be having each one of these addressed individually. It's to consider approval of the provisions of 1-710-2A of the Code of Ethics to determine if the ethics complaint filed against members of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen has sufficient merit to warrant further investigation. Number one.
Mr. Mayor, point of order. Since that item was removed and these would be separate items, they shouldn't be number one. They should be each individual items with their own item number now. And to that point, that agenda item was changed in its entirety to the wording of Mr. Mann's motion, which he may need to recite for your records.
That motion was. to amend the agenda item 2382 to break it down into 7 individual agenda items as submitted to be discussed by the full board and the merit voted upon as separate matters, requiring each alderman in each matter to abstain from voting on items concerning themselves. That's the motion.
So it will be discussed by the full board, and individual aldermen shall abstain, and then we'll assign an item number to each. Is that correct?
That's correct. You're starting with item number 1. Formal complaint against Alderman Kirk Glick for violation of Section 3 and 4 of the Code of Ethics for participating in discussion and voting on agenda items that found that could affect his lawsuit against the city. Alderman Berry, you're recognized.
You got to this before I did. I was actually going to pull this item, the whole item. And I'll make a comment first. When I did put it on, the intent was not to discuss any of it at all, because I don't, other than to say we received these complaints on the whole. There's a couple in here, like number 2, and I know this is jumping ahead, but it builds on my first. Number 2, I was sitting right beside Alderman Allmacher when we discussed the fireworks, and she did disclose that she owned a fireworks stand. You know, I don't, and this is just me, on number 5, I think it's known that you are a real estate agent. And so my intent wasn't to ever go through any of these and have that debate up here, because I don't, as much as I would love to. I don't think that it is appropriate to dig into all of this right here and right now. So my original intent for this was to say, let's take it completely off of our plate and just have somebody look into it and be done. Then there's no pointing fingers. If everybody feels confident that these are all okay, then it's no big deal. We don't have to sit up here and have the awful debate that we're probably about to have. And so that was my intent, was not to go through any of them.
Alderman Berry, do you wish to make a motion to change the agenda to remove that item?
Can't change it now, can you?
No. I'd like to say something.
With a vote?
You have a request to speak.
Alderman Wilson.
I think that it's perfectly appropriate to talk about it in the public purview. I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I missed you. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I just think that at this point, because it's been put out there, right? It's on the agenda. Everyone's seen it. The newspaper, right or wrong, put it on the front page of the paper without any explanation, without reaching out to anyone on this board that was mentioned in it for their side of the story. We've gotten to hear one side of the story in the complaint. And we should take these things very seriously, and we should listen to them. But it's important too, just as you said earlier, that you feel you've been silenced in these meetings, and I hate to hear that. That's certainly never been my intention. But I think it's in that same spirit that we shouldn't silence, and we should have this debate, as ugly as it probably could get. But I think it's still important that the people mentioned, these are folks that aren't just aldermen, right? We're neighbors. We shop at the same stores. We go to the same places. We know each other. In fact, with the exception of Mayor Noes, I knew everyone on this board before you had a title in front of your name. And it's important that we remember these are human beings too, and that I feel it's fair that they get to say their side of the story, and I want to hear it, honestly. I think these should be addressed. So that's my thoughts, that's my opinion on it.
Alderman Berry?
Yeah, I guess let's dig in then. But I think part of the motion was that, when you recuse yourself, recusal means you don't participate in the discussion or the vote. Abstention means that you don't vote. There's a difference, guys. It's a definition. You're not going to argue with me on a definition, because it is what it is. So we're either recusing or we're abstaining.
No one has recused themselves.
I thought that his motion said recuse.
My motion said requiring each alderman in each matter to abstain from voting on items concerning themselves. I hope that we're able to ask them questions, that they can at least respond to our questions about some of these things. I mean, because some of these things, there's no way we could know without asking questions. Right?
We have to be part of the discussion in order for it to...
Yeah, that's what. All right, then I'm going to wait until Kurt's gone.
Mr. Worsham.
Mr. Worsham, be recognized.
As you all know, our city code has adopted a code of ethics that I have attempted to follow as the ethics officer appointed in that city code. And this is what the code of ethics requires us to do. I had originally intended that this matter be discussed, first of all, in executive session privately, so that we could all have an idea about the background relative to these complaints and the explanation from each of these people who had been accused of doing things that were misdeeds of certain sorts. But because the matter was made public and sent to the newspaper, then there wasn't any reason to do that privately. So we're here tonight, and the code of ethics specifically requires this. The board must either determine if the complaint has merit, determine that it does not have merit, or determine that the complaint has sufficient merit to warrant further investigation. This action must take place in an open meeting. There is no way that we can make this determination unless there's discussion of it, because these people have a right to answer to the allegations that are made against them. These are just simply allegations. They have a right to defend themselves, so I think that this discussion should take place tonight, publicly, and each of you will have an opportunity to explain your position in this matter.
So you're saying each will have an opportunity to explain
I believe, yes, sir.
They can participate in the
There's no other way we can determine whether or not it has merit, Mr. Mann, if not.
Okay.
Do you have any questions about that?
I think we have a clear understanding that any alderman addressed in any of these items can present their side of the story, if you will. They can answer questions that we have. The only thing is that they would not vote on that particular item. Very clear on that. Item number 1, I've already read. Let's start with any discussion on item number 1. Barry, you recommend it?
I would like to wait until Alderman Glick has given his case.
Alderman Wilson, you're recognized.
I did.
I pressed my button.
Alderman Mann, you're also recognized.
Okay, so on this first complaint, and basically I'll try and read through it. Alderman Kirk Glick has participated in and voted in multiple agenda items that could influence his current lawsuit against the city. So I guess one thing that I don't know, and I don't know that any of us on this board would know, are what items. This doesn't cite any of the actual items. And then it goes on to say specifically his retaliation and attempts to discredit Jennifer Moody and his participation of and voting in anything concerning Costa Bryce. So again, it mentions those, and it says specifically, but it still fails to give what those were. So I guess my first question for Alderman Glick would be, have you voted on anything to do with your lawsuit?
No, I haven't.
Have you voted for anything to do with what happened to you 2 years ago, roughly 2 years ago, concerning your employment as Parks and Rec Director?
No, I have not.
Any votes or discussion you have participated in involving Ms. Moody and Ms. Bryce, were they about anything to do with their involvement or lack of in your leaving the Parks and Rec position?
No, they were not.
Were they about anything to do with the investigation conducted by Wimberly Lawson?
No.
Were any votes or discussion you have had as an alderman about anything other than that has been before this board connected in any way to your lawsuit?
No, nothing.
Have you ever been part of any executive session concerning your lawsuit for the city, or did you excuse yourself?
I excuse myself.
Can you repeat that last question?
Have you been part of any executive session concerning your lawsuit with the city?
I excused myself.
Right. And so, personally on this, I failed to see how Alderman Glick voting on matters that have happened since he was elected alderman and completely unrelated to this specific case and incidents behind his lawsuit with the city could possibly help him financially in his lawsuit. The lawsuit's about something that happened roughly 2-3 years ago. It was
almost 3 years ago.
To my knowledge, our city attorney has never said voting on these matters is an issue. Is that?
Never has. Has
the attorneys that are trying the case for the city ever said anything about this to anyone?
No.
There's just not enough here to show me that there's merit in this complaint. And I can't imagine, honestly, how an investigation could show anything more. How Alderman Glick and all of us vote, what's behind our votes lies in our own hearts and minds. And I don't know how an investigation or even any questions I might have can actually tell us that. So I just don't see that there's enough here to go any further with this.
Any further discussion? Alderman Berry.
Yeah, I think that, so there was this centers around the lawsuit. Alderman Glick is suing the city of Tullahoma for $500,000 on claims of age discrimination. There are 3 primary fact witnesses in this case, 2, and then 1 who participated in the investigation and was what we have called whistleblower. Those 3 people, Jennifer Moody, our former city administrator, on day 1, Alderman Glick went after her up here. The second is Costa Bryce, and I think that we've all seen how that has gone. And the third was Sheila Rico. Now, in the investigation, one of the primary findings in there was about retaliation, and Alderman Glick's retaliation while he was department head. And that is a full investigation that's done there. It was a third-party investigation. So I think that when we're talking about things that we voted on that could affect the lawsuit, I mean, I think unfortunately for Alderman Glick, the things that he's voted on and the things that he's done will probably affect his lawsuit in a negative way for him. Not so much for the city of Tullahoma, if I was a betting man, which is fine. In participating in things, let's go back to February 1st. On that date, Alderman Glick received a phone call from our then city recorder, Rosemary Golden, making him aware of some files that were marked to be shredded. I don't know that conversation. I don't know what happened on that conversation, but we do know from Alderman Almacher's Facebook videos and from conversation up here, that Alderman Glick called Alderman Almacher to have Alderman Almacher come down here and take a look at those files.
Point of order. What does this have to do with voting on Ms. Moody or Ms. Bryce?
Yeah, so this is all about, I'm getting there.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. Could you call order?
There should not be any.
Alderman Berry, you're still recognized.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, point of order. My point is, as chairman of this meeting, you need to keep the audience under control.
I was paying attention here. I didn't even hear
Yeah, I know. They're yelling comments, and you will be asked to leave if it continues.
Point of order, Mr.
You're still recognized.
Thank you. If an alderman interrupts and does the same thing that we're accusing the public of, will they be asked to leave as well? So, per Alderman Almacher's Facebook videos.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. Could you please address the audience?
You don't like it when we do it. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor.
The audience will be in order or asked to leave. Alderman Berry.
Per Alderman Allmarker's Facebook videos and commentary on video during a board meeting, while reviewing these documents, Alderman Allmarker was on the phone with Alderman Glick and informed him that she thought some of the documents were relevant to his case. Right? Events occurred. There are multiple stories. The documents ended up in then Administrator Moody's office. I had received a phone call sometime during all this that Alderman Glick, Mann, Wilson, and Allmarker were all in the administrator's office, and so I went up there. Conversations ensued behind closed doors, and I was there, and I was a part of that. And those conversations should not have happened. I believe it was a violation of, myself included, because I was there. During those conversations, I had suggested that we lock them up at the police department. We all came to kind of an agreement, which we shouldn't have done. They came, they took them, and they put them in, and we decided until we had legal opinion, everybody agreed. So at that time, we left Administrator Moody's office. So it was behind closed doors, but somebody was recording all of that. Alderman Glick had recorded everything that was happened in Administrator Moody's office, and he happened to be recording after we left, and he was talking with other aldermen. And it was at that time, per the recording, in Alderman Glick's voice, he said, "I tell you what, that's just the first that could be the big excuse for saying, I think we need another investigation into HR. She just gave us our excuse." Okay? So when you take into context the lawsuit, the history per the investigation of the retaliation, and then let's look at the vote that happened on, what was it, February 12th, 13th, to put administrative, which I don't believe we had the right to. I don't think we had the power to order employees to put Costa Bryce on leave. That was a decision, he should have never been involved in any of those discussions. He should not have been involved in the Administrator Moody discussions. We have, some of our closed door meetings, we have tried to use executive sessions, but they weren't executive sessions and they aren't covered by executive sessions. I listened to Alderman Allmarker accuse her of being a criminal. I listened to Alderman Glick call her our now disgraced HR director. And so, you know, it's just difficult for me to say, you know, he absolutely has participated in discussion and voting on the items that could affect, hopefully negatively for him, his lawsuit. And on one quick question on, or point, is on the executive sessions, Alderman Glick has not. He has recused himself from those executive sessions. But from a public document, part of his deposition here, he said, before hearing Ms. Allmarker today, were you, or this was a question from the attorney, were you aware of the existence of this recording she's talking about? He said, I was aware, she's talking about an executive session that she recorded, and she talked about that on Facebook. He said, I was aware of the executives, yeah, so it's right here. You can say no, but it's right here. Has she told you why she got on Facebook and was talking about a recording on an executive sessions? Kurt, no, and I did not. I got a Facebook page for my campaign and put some stuff on here, but I do not get on Facebook. The question, okay, and prior to that time that ran, Mr. Glick, is it correct that you were not on any form of social media? Answer, no, I wasn't. Question, okay. Answer, I think I had a Facebook page created at one time, but question, never used it. Answer, I never, yeah. Question, okay. Answer, it's a waste of time. It is. Before hearing Ms. Allmarker today, were you aware of the existence of this recording she's talking about? Again, the recording of the executive session. I was aware of the executive session. Question, okay, and how were you aware of the executive session? Answer, Ms. Allmacher told me. Question, and what did she tell you about it? Just told me that they had an executive session during my case. Question, okay, and she didn't tell you anything about the specific substance? Answer, no, she said, no, she didn't. She said they just went over my case with the attorneys and said that she thought the executive session was improper, that it was a violation of what an executive session should be or whatever. I mean, I don't know if I stated that right, but that's question. Okay. Well, what were the circumstances or in what context was in this conversation came about or started between you and her? Answer, she was upset about my termination. Question, okay. And so she's in favor of you filing suit. This all goes to...
This is getting too far into a current active litigation. We should not be discussing this. This has nothing to do with whether or not Kurt has effectively made votes in this board. That's in his deposition. That's not on this board making votes towards items. That has nothing to do with anything. He's well beyond the scope. We're talking about active, current litigation. We should not be discussing that right now. And he's not making any points to his credit either. I mean,
I'm trying to read through. It's a public document that is publicly available.
Okay, it's publicly available, but it doesn't have anything to do with this agenda item.
It does.
No,
And
it doesn't.
If I could finish, then I'll get to...
Please finish.
I will get to my point. Hang on, I lost my place. She was upset about my termination, okay, and so she's in favor of you filing against the city. Object to the form. Yeah, I couldn't. Has she expressed to you that she's in favor of you filing against the city? Not in so many words. Okay, to be sure you weren't terminated, you were retired, right? So it all goes to anything.
You didn't prove anything. It was all speculation.
Man, you're recognized.
Yes, so just a couple things. Ms. Alderman Berry said that there was evidence of retaliation when Alderman Glick was Parks and Rec Director, but on page 2 of our investigation, the Wimberly Lawson report, it says, we found no direct evidence of retaliation in this department. So the other thing, these events we're talking about, right? What happened at City Hall that day, all these things are after the fact. These have nothing to do with Alderman Glick when he was Parks and Rec Director being discriminated against because of his age, right? Nothing in all the things he just named. Problems, yes, right? Things we should address, and we have, but not anything to do directly with his lawsuit. So, and I agree with Alderman Berry when he says this isn't going to help him in court, right? He just said, how does any of that benefits his lawsuit? You know, Alderman Berry says it could actually hurt his lawsuit. So when it comes to his votes on here saying they could influence, and the reason that's important is because it's citing the ethics code, the 3 and 4, which say that he could directly financially benefit from this, from what he's being accused of. But even according to Alderman Berry, and I believe there's probably some truth to it, it actually hurt him. So I don't see how, you know, we can take up the Kurt Glick case another day, and we have lawyers doing that. But as far as this ethics complaint, you can't make the connection.
Alderman Almacher, you're recognized now.
Mr. Mann said it better than I could. I'll pass.
You did have your hand up.
Everything's been said.
Alderman Berry, could you close, please?
On the same page where it says that, it continues to say, however, we did uncover evidence that supports a broadly held belief that retaliation did in fact take place as a result of Stacey Cott's grievance, and we identified other situations that create at least a reasonable belief that retaliation may...
We're not litigating his lawsuit. Point of order. We are not litigating that lawsuit. We are litigating whether or not he's violated a code of ethics.
He's finishing.
Yep, that retaliation may have taken place. And so my tie around back to these motions is, one, by participating in those motions, it was a form of abuse of power, is my belief. it could positively affect his lawsuit by trying to discredit Administrator Moody and by trying to discredit Costa Bryce, by calling Costa Bryce a criminal, accusing her of committing crimes, by saying the same thing about Administrator Moody. So, yes, I think that it was awful.
Alderman Wilson.
I would like to address Alderman Berry's statement that in our first board meeting that Glick and others went after Administrator Moody, because if anybody would care to rewatch that meeting, that was definitely not the case. We were scolded and snapped back by Administrator Moody. It was not the opposite. So I'm not sure where you're getting that information from, but that's incorrect.
Okay, if there's no further,
everybody
Do I
can watch
get,
it.
now do I have I can't remember what rules we decided on, but do I
Yes,
have
you
a
can-
chance to speak in my? Okay. I'll just start out by saying, first of all, with the meeting that Ms. Wilson was talking about and Mr. Berry alluded to, the first meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, I did not go after Ms. Moody at that meeting, just as Ms. Wilson said. Ms. Moody went after the board, specifically kind of Ms. Wilson, but addressing all the board members, and scolded us and said we needed to do our homework. And then she stormed out of the room, turned to the audience, and said, "Disgusting," referring to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. So in the second board meeting I participated in, yes, I did participate in bringing up wanting to discuss disciplinary proceedings or a write-up or something of Miss Moody for insubordination, because that's what it was, in my opinion. It didn't pass. The board decided not to take that on. We went on. We moved on. The second time that I had anything to do with Miss Moody at a meeting was when she put on the agenda an item that she lied about. She said that she was trying to get the CD Stamps gym floor repair approved because it was over her spending limit. So the Board of Mayor and Aldermen had to approve that spending. Well, we found out that the gym floor had already been approved. The job had already been done. The money had already been spent. So when she was questioned on that, then she admitted that she didn't tell the truth. So that was the second time that I thought some disciplinary action was due. She lied to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, lied to the people of Tullahoma. I thought it was due. The board, once again, didn't agree with me. We moved on. Those were things that happened when I was a board member on this board. Had nothing to do whatsoever with Kurt Glick, Parks and Recreation Director, or anything else, and had nothing to do with the lawsuit that I'm involved in for being discriminated against by the city. So, and I was under advice that I was perfectly within my rights to be able to vote on that. I disclosed at the beginning of the vote that I was basing my decisions only upon things that I had learned since I'd been alderman, specifically in those two meetings. So that's all I have to say about those items. And the items about Miss Bryce, I don't think the full story, the true story, has ever been brought out about the situation that led us to investigating Costa Bryce and the files at City Hall being shredded. Parts of it are out there, right? But I got a call from Rosemary Golden, the city recorder at the time, who's entrusted by the city to maintain the city's records and safeguard those records. She called me and said that she was concerned about that Miss Bryce had ordered a shredder bin and was destroying a lot of city files, had not been approved by her, the city recorder, had not been shown what was being shredded or anything like that, and she was concerned about it. I picked up the phone and called Mr. Worsham, the city attorney, asked his advice, asked him if he could go up to City Hall and investigate what was going on because there may be some impropriety. He said it wasn't in his contractor in his wheelhouse to do that investigation, but as an alderman, that I could go up there and investigate it, that all those people up there work for you, so you're essentially their boss. You can go up there and investigate and find out what's going on. Since the person involved was Costa Bryce, I was just being extra careful, and I thought, well, maybe I shouldn't be the one to go up there and investigate that. So I called Mr. Mann, because I know his office is right across the street from City Hall. He said he couldn't go. He has a couple of employees, and one of them was gone, one of them was at lunch. He couldn't go over there. Second person I called was Miss Almacher. She said, well, I'm driving my car down the road. I can stop by right now. So that's how Jenna went to City Hall to investigate the files. End of story.
Were you on the phone with her while she did? While she was looking at those?
Yeah, she called me and said that I got in City Hall, I found the shredder.
And there was nothing in there about her saying that she had found documents that related to you?
No, I said there were documents had his name on them.
Yes, that's what she said.
Alderman Almacher's recognized.
Yes, I said there were documents that had his name on them. There were documents that had a lot of people's names on them, and there was definitely PII information that was not adequately secured that would be a violation of internal policy at a minimum, in an unlocked closet, in an unlocked shredder bin, and not in Miss Bryce's office, though some have said that. No, it was in a supply closet in the hallway, across from, in between Mr. Mayor and Ms. Bryce's office. To my surprise, the documents kind of existed. I was a little taken back that they existed, but nonetheless, I requested to speak because I now move to determine that this complaint in section 1 of item number 2383. So I'm not sure if we're going to call this item number 2383-1 and it being its own agenda item, but it does need to be voted on separately. I move to determine that this complaint lacks merit.
We have a motion to move that the complaint does not lack merit. We're ready to vote.
That it does lack merit.
Just need a second.
I will need a second.
So one more time, we're voting to determine.
We're voting to determine if it has sufficient merit to warrant further investigation.
Okay.
It says must determine if the complaint has merit, determine if it does not have merit, or determine that the complaint has sufficient merit to warrant further investigation. So I am moving to determine that this complaint does not have merit.
So the question is that it does not have merit.
If we're voting whether the item has merit or not, you can vote no. If you don't want to move forward, instead of a negative motion, it can still be a positive motion and we vote no, it does not have merit to proceed.
Okay.
Just a second.
So yes, it does have merit. No, it does not have merit.
Right. Yes, it has merit. No, it does not have merit. Let's just phrase it that way. Yes.
And move forward on the rest of them that
She
way.
needs a second first.
I think Bob
I did.
It was on the little
It's
screen.
on the screen there.
Do I press abstain on this thing?
Yep.
So yes, it has merit. No, it does not have merit.
That's correct. Two yes, 4 no's. So that does not have merit by our vote. 5-2. Moving on. It's going to get late quick. Number 2, a formal complaint against Alderman Almacher for violation of Section 3 and 4 of the Code of Ethics for not disclosing she owned a fireworks stand when voted to expand the amount of days for the fireworks to be sold and to profit further. I didn't read that very well, but it's before you. Alderman Berry, need a motion?
Yeah, first I'll make the motion to, whatever we got to do to say it.
The motion is merit or not? The motion is
We're not
merit or
doing
not?
negative, so we'll say the motion has merit. But I want to follow that with, I'm going to vote no, because I was sitting right beside her when she said she had two. She had one new one in another fireworks stand. So but we got to vote on it. But I was sitting there when.
Alderman Mann?
First off, I've seen some of the agreements most of these tent operators are signing, and I know a little bit about this. Alderman Berry may remember this. We looked into it a few years ago. But just to confirm a few things, Alderman Almacher, did you obtain a business license for your fireworks tent?
No.
Did you sign a lease for the property the tent was on?
Let me go back. No, a business license is not required for me to do that. So
Sure.
I didn't obtain one because I didn't need one. TNT obtains that. What was your second question?
Second question, did you sign the lease for the
No.
property? Would TNT have done that as well?
TNT did that as well.
Do you own the tent or even rent it?
No, it's TNT's tent.
Do you purchase the fireworks sold at the tent, or are those provided
Those are provided.
by TNT? Because you're essentially paid a commission to operate and manage the tent, kind of like my folks in sales.
Correct.
Get a commission. You'd say that's correct.
That is correct.
I guess you did disclose, but you really don't own it.
I don't own it.
So, and one last thing, because it does mention that this vote had something to do, I wasn't on the board at the time, with selling fireworks on Juneteenth. Roughly, what dollar amount of fireworks did you sell on Juneteenth last year?
Never sold fireworks on June 19th. In fact, our corporate doesn't allow us to open until June 20th.
I see. So that really didn't have any effect on it. All right, that's all I got.
Alderman Berry, you're recognized next.
I didn't mean. I'm ready to vote.
Any further discussion? Ready to vote? The motion, I thought I had a motion in a second.
So once again, we vote no, says it has no merit.
And that does not have merit. Vote is 6-1. Who did not tell me?
Abstain.
It's
I abstained.
6 noes. The next item is a formal complaint against Alderman Kurt Glick and Alderman Tom
This
Motley.
needs to be broken up into two items.
Let's do that, 3A and 3B.
Yeah.
Kurt Glick, you'll be A. A formal complaint against Alderman Kurt Glick for violation of Section 7A of the Code of Ethics for after being instructed not for renting a car on the city credit. It was on a city credit card and the balance has not been paid back. That was for a trip that was made to Phoenix, Arizona for Great American City. Need a motion? Motion from Barry and seconded by Mann. Seconded by Wilson. Alderman Mann, you're recognized.
Okay, so we're going over the first line of this complaint mentions Alderman Glick. That's what we're talking about first, right? Alderman Glick in this. And the first line of this complaint mentions Alderman Glick was proven to have misused city equipment. And that's what inspired me to read the actual Wimberly Lawson report. And
Wait a minute. We're on the one about the rental car, right?
yes.
Okay.
And after reading that,
I think, point of order, Bobby's confused. I think you're alluding back to the complaint that was actually submitted to the paper.
No.
Or
Yes, so if you look at the original ethics complaint that we received.
The original ethics complaint
which is what we should be looking at.
Yes.
And in the original complaint, and you can see it here, it says Alderman Glick was proven to have misused city equipment. When you go through the Wimberly Lawson report, it says a lot of things. It says no direct evidence of retaliation. Page 7, none of the witnesses we interviewed admitted to having observed or being aware of any direct evidence of racial bias. The most vocal critic on this issue, Ms. Rico, stated that she does not believe Mr. Glick is a racist. On page 8, Ms. Rico says she was unable to identify any specific examples of discrimination. You see a lot of things to do with what the purpose of this report was. But what you don't see is anything that says Alderman Glick or then Parks and Rec Director Glick misused city equipment. So already that's not the case at all, and that's just, I don't know if that's a personal attack or what, to even include that in there when it comes to discussing this rental car. But let's see, the complaint says that Alderman Glick and Almacher, but we'll get to that one, rented a car after being told not to. Alderman Glick, did you rent a car when you went to Phoenix, Arizona?
No, I did not.
Did you sign any type of rental agreement or paperwork concerning renting a car?
No, I did not.
So I'm not sure why Alderman Glick's even mentioning this, because he did not sign any agreement. He did not rent a car. So.
Alderman Gary, you recognize?
So I would ask to postpone this, and the reason that I ask is because I've done a FOIA request to obtain all the information surrounding this, and I would like to take that up once we have the actual information.
Are you calling us a liar?
No, I think we could discuss it.
I'm just going to throw it out there.
I could bring back another complaint if you find something.
Oh, well, I'll just send the information out. I figured that's how it'd go, but.
Well,
I have a question.
I'll post it out there.
Are you finished, Alderman?
Yes, go ahead.
Alderman Wilson, you're recognized.
Just on the note of a FOIA request, I was just interested to know how the complainants have intimate knowledge of the use of the city's credit card. Does somebody have the answer to that question?
Because who were these complainants? None of them were city employees, is that correct? Or aldermen at the time?
No, that's correct. No one's a city employee.
And so how do they have any knowledge of what's on the city's credit card usage?
Mr. Pearson or Mr. Worsham, if we could check into how the complainants have intimate knowledge of the use of the city credit card if we're talking about FOIA requests.
If there hasn't been a FOIA request, then we've got a leak somewhere.
I did a FOIA request.
Now, how did they have information to submit this complaint? You just said you plan to do one and have just now done one.
I already did one.
When?
I did it last week.
Do you have the information?
Then this predates. This complaint predates your FOIA.
But what you're
So it seems to reason if nobody's aware of a FOIA request.
Ms. Wilson, you are recognized.
Okay,
no
thank
one
you.
else is recognized.
So I'm a little troubled that it seems that nobody has knowledge of a FOIA request, that someone within our city government has somehow obtained that information about the city credit card and then shared it with citizens of the community. Now, if a FOIA request was submitted, then that's proper. But I would like to have an investigation on how private citizens, because I'm not even aware of what's on the city credit card.
Alderman Barry, you're recognized.
So I'll recap what was just said. We're concerned that someone has knowledge of how city taxpayer dollars were spent and that they relayed this information to those city taxpayers. So number one, there's nothing private about a city credit card. So even if a city employee did say that, hey, something happened here, that's public information, period. So what we're sitting up here saying right now is that if an employee has a concern about how something is spent and they talk about how taxpayer dollars are spent, that is somehow wrong. I don't get that. I have a question for Alderman Allacher.
I'm not in this one, right?
This one's on Kurt.
This is Kurt. Then I'll wait on his. I'll vote no to that one.
Alderman Wilson, you're recognized again.
I would like to consult with the city attorney, Mr. Worsham. Mr. Worsham.
Mr. Worsham, we have a question for you.
You know, I have a lot of trouble hearing y'all. I can talk and you can hear me without that, and I don't think this system's very good, so please repeat what you said, Ms. Wilson.
I just wondered if you could elaborate on how the process is with the city. So my question was that how do the complainants in this have intimate knowledge of the use of the city's credit card? And I wondered if a FOIA request had been made in this complaint.
Mr. Berry said he did. I'm not a party to any FOIA request. That usually doesn't go through our office. But I think we should wait until he gets the answer to his FOIA request before we act on this particular issue.
That's not right, but if it can be public knowledge, but the use of the city credit card, would that require a FOIA request for citizens to be able to obtain what was spent on the city credit card?
Probably it would, because I don't think that the credit can just come up here and look at our records without any kind of provocation or any reason to do that. We don't make those records available to anybody unless they ask for them, and they do it through FOIA.
And so I was just...
I don't even look at those records, although I can, unless I'm asked to by a member of the board or something like that, because that's not anything that's within my jurisdiction.
And I was wondering the same thing, because I'm just curious of how citizens have intimate knowledge of the use of the city's credit card without a FOIA request.
Well, first of all, Mr. Glick has said that he didn't use the credit card and he didn't do this. So that means this is an unfounded allegation.
Thank you.
It requires no investigation because he said he didn't do it. So I can make any kind of allegation I want to about any of you all, but if there's no truth behind it, then it's unfounded. Right. So in my opinion, in this particular case, this is an unfounded allegation, and I would suggest that it has no merit.
Alderman Mann, your recommendation.
I'm just going to reiterate what Mr. Worsham said. I mean, at the end of the day, we can talk about some of these other things, but Alderman Glick is saying he did not rent a car. I mean, there's not much more to it than that. So if he didn't rent a car, there is no issue with the city credit card. FOIA request, no FOIA request. He didn't do it. So it's just that simple.
Alderman Glick.
I'll just say, like everybody said, I did not rent a car on that trip. I did not ever have possession of a city credit card on that trip that I could have rented a car on. So that's all I have to say about that. It's ridiculous.
Okay, on what you got?
Yeah, I'm starting to see a trend here. There seems to be some people who are purposefully making false accusations to create the appearance of conflicts of interest to benefit themselves and our community. And I think we can all know that the reason the FOIA request matters is because your FOIA request wouldn't have, you haven't even received a response, number one, you just said, so there obviously have been things being discussed with people. I couldn't go up and get the city's bank statements if I wanted to. And, I think that's the point here. Not that it's private, but you have to make the proper requests.
Okay, the motion is there sufficient merit to warrant further investigation of Alderman Kurt Glick for renting a car on a city credit card? That's the motion. The vote is 5-2. No. That's on 3A. Alderman 3B is for same question regarding Alderman Almacher. In violation of Section 7A of the Code of Ethics, after being instructed not to rent a car on city credit card, and balance has not been paid. That's, need a motion. Motion from Matt Berry and seconded by Mathis. Mr. Mann, Alderman Mann, you recognize?
So we know what the deal was with Kurt and the rental car. Alderman Almacher, did you rent a car during your trip to Arizona?
Yes, I rented a car for the purpose of me, and it was supposed to be me and Mr. Glick and Miss Wilson, but Miss Wilson ended up on a different flight for us to get to and from the airport since there was no transportation provided.
Were you told not to, and if so, by who?
I was not told not to. I was told that Miss Moody is not renting a car, that she would be Ubering.
Okay, and who told you that?
The secretary, Miss
Robin.
Is that Robin?
Robin Morrison.
Mm-hmm. Was anything else said to you about renting a car? No, don't do it, you're not allowed, don't use the city credit card, anything like that?
No.
So I assume you made it from the airport to your hotel in said rental car?
Yes.
Is that correct? So I looked, and just to see, and this is good to know for all of us, but in the Tullahoma Municipal Code, when you go to the part on Board of Mayor and Aldermen, and then you go to travel pay policies, and I even, if anyone wants a copy, so you know what I'm talking about, I can pass it around. But it says, travel pay policies when you come to transportation, where rental of an automobile is deemed necessary for use by the traveler in the transaction of business for the good of the city, the rental fee will be paid providing a receipted statement is presented upon return for reimbursement. So what I'm reading there is not only can an alderman rent a car, it is completely up to the discretion of the traveler, be it an alderman, city administrator, department head, to determine when the rental car is necessary. And so if you look, there's no other guidance to that. There's no, this person gives you authorization, you have to get approval from the city administrator or from the board. It just says when it's deemed necessary for use by the traveler in the transaction of business for the good of the city. So that's where I'm struggling. And I imagine, and several of the rest of you were also at this conference, correct? Because it was before I came along. But at that conference, you all had to get from the airport to the hotel, right? Not everyone rented a car, obviously, but you Ubered. There were other ways which the city compensated, correct? Is that a correct statement? So, yeah, I mean, it's right there. If there's something out there that says she did this the wrong way or there was a different process, I can't find it. That's all I have.
I'll just make a comment. I'll just let you know that there was Uber opportunities, and it cost 3 of us Ubered from the airport to the hotel, which is about 4 miles. Cost $17.
And so I would say to that a couple things. One, that was your choice to make, right? According to our code, it was your choice to decide whether or not you wanted to Uber, walk, whatever. And the other thing is I think when it comes to, I've used Uber. I personally like Uber when I'm out of town. I'd rather have someone else drive me than me drive myself in a city I'm not familiar with. But if Alderman Almacher is a single female in a different state, far away from home, and she feels safer. Let's say that's just a safety choice with a rental car. Again, It's up to the traveler. And so I get there are some ways that might have been cheaper or cost less, but I do know on this specific trip, there were, I think there was an alderman that had to cancel at the last minute, long past when airline tickets and hotels could be canceled. Things like that happen. So that costs money too. This is all very, just ticky-tack stuff. But at the end of the day, municipal code says it right there. If there's something else, I'd love to know it.
Alderman Berry.
Out of curiosity, which alderman had to cancel?
I wouldn't want to call out anyone's name.
It wasn't me. You went, and you went.
It was Alderman Dunn.
So Alderman Dunn. Okay. Nobody, I wish we could wait until I had the information that I needed, because I've requested the emails that were related to this and the financial statements and everything that was tied. So my preference would be to wait until I had that.
You put it on the agenda.
Yeah, no, I did. You were not told?
No.
To not? Were you ever asked to pay that back?
No.
Never?
Never. I've never been asked to pay that back.
Okay.
This concerns Alderman Almater. We're going on this agenda item that with warrants further investigation. Ready for the vote.
Once again, no means no.
No further investigation. And that passes. The no vote is 4-2. Item number 4. Complaint against Alderman Almater for violation of section using the city's insurance for violations of section 7A of the Code of Ethics using the city's insurance company to represent her actions during February at City Hall. Motion from Berry, seconded by Mann. Alderman Berry.
Yeah, on this, my understanding of our insurance and how that works is we'll pay, and stop me if I'm wrong, we'll pay like a $5,000 deductible, and that's really it for the costs on us, whatever our deductible is. If they incur other expenses, that's on them, is my understanding. So I think that the events surrounding kind of I don't know that it's unethical. I think the foot stomping was a little ridiculous. But on this one here, if the insurance company said that they would represent, then that's the insurance company's decision, and it didn't cost, to my knowledge, didn't cost any additional taxpayer funds. I don't know how that is how that would violate Section 7 or 8.
Oh, man.
So, just so we're clear, you, Alderman Almacher, you reached out to Public Entity Partners to retain an attorney concerning the matter that happened in February at City Hall.
Well, actually, I did reach out to Public Entity Partners to get guidance on what to do next, but actually I went to Kenny, and Kenny had to assist me with submitting a claim to see if it was allowable under the policy and was covered, since I was acting in my official capacity, and it turns out it was.
So Public Entity Partners, and I think we can all agree, they're an organization that we trust with the legal defense of our city. They agreed with you that you did in fact qualify for legal counsel?
I would assume, I mean, they never said, hey, I agree with you. They just assigned me an attorney, and the next thing I know is he called me. So.
Okay, so there were no favors or anything like that? You just reached out, or Kenny reached out, and you got an attorney?
Yes.
And they felt it was justified?
Yes.
That's it.
Any other questions? Alderman Glick.
I'll just say, if you put in a claim with an insurance company and they positively provide you with what you want, if they pay out the claim, in other words, there's a good reason why they're doing that, and that means that they agree with the request that you made. So our insurance company agreed that she made a valid request. So.
I wish we could just left well enough alone and not try to put that in a cute, tidy little bow, because that's not exactly how it happened. It didn't just, the insurance company didn't just agree. There was a lot of back and forth on that. There was even Alderman Almacher calling an executive session that wasn't an executive session, it wasn't covered, asking us to fire that law firm. She went back and forth with them. There's emails.
Point of order.
Point of order.
There's nothing to do with nothing whatsoever to do.
And I didn't call an executive session, Mr. Mayor, you did. I don't have the authority to call an executive session.
Alderman Berry, you're recognized, and you're only recognized.
So, yeah, it wasn't just a nice, tidy little bow on that, and I agree, this isn't a conflict of interest, but let's not make that bigger than what it was.
Mr. Mayor.
That was a different issue.
Would you please advise Mr. Berry that you called the executive session that he is referring to, not I. I do not have the authority.
That's correct.
That is correct.
At a request.
Any of us can request that.
Anybody can make the request.
And as to this, I would just, the reason I wanted to do that was because we do have the right in executive session to talk to our lawyers and advise them on what we want them to do. So now we have our lawyers hired by our insurance company fighting lawyers hired by our insurance company because our lawyers, you know, in my opinion, have breached their fiduciary duty and have caused this. And so I wanted our board to get together and try to figure out a solution that didn't require that insurance request. That is what I was trying to achieve in doing so, but unfortunately, that did not happen.
Yes, Mr. Worship, you're recognized.
I'm not the lawyer that was involved in that. The city, it was Mr. Glick's lawsuit against the city, which was the case that we're talking about. Mr. Almacher was called as a witness to that in that case, among other things, to provide some information for them. And she felt like she needed legal advice to do that, and I felt like under my contract I was not obliged or required to do that. And she sought then advice from PEP, and there was a renewal about that. They had to take her advisement and take it up the ladder to hire up people to determine whether or not she would be entitled to representation, and they decided that she would, and decided in favor of her, and they provided her response. And appropriate, and there's no reason why there should be any question about that, in my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Worship. Question for us is Ms. Almacher violate the code? Is there sufficient evidence to further investigate? Yes or no? Passes 6-1. Item 5, formal complaint against Alderman Bobby Wilson for violations of Section 3 of the Code of Ethics for not declaring her vested personal interest in the real estate market in Tullahoma during the discussion of the vote on the 2040 plan. Your motion. Motion from Berry, seconded by Mann. Alderman Berry.
Yeah, we've had other realtors on the board in the past. If she was voting on something that she was selling or had investment in or something on that, then yeah, I could see. But I think just not being I've seen her signs, so I don't think just being a realtor in general is a violation of the ethics. Otherwise, there have been times we had 2 or 3 members of the board who were in violation.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Mann.
Alderman Wilson voted against the plan. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Without her doing so, the plan would have passed, correct? Because it was 4-3. Is that how everyone remembers it, or was it?
No, we all voted no.
This was, so were we talking about the vote where Alderman Glick made the motion to It was the meeting where you all came with your suggestions for the plan, and Alderman Glick made the motion to kill it. That's what I'm taking.
That wouldn't have passed the plan. That was sent it to the planning commission.
So either way, she voted against it. So she couldn't have benefited from that, because the whole point of the comprehensive plan is, to create new homes, to create new businesses, to create growth, and she voted against it. So she couldn't have profited from it. And also, what's also disturbing in this is her husband is mentioned in this, Dr. George Wilson, who is not an elected official. And while he may have his opinions, of which he's entitled to, I think it's kind of sexist and offensive to say Alderman Wilson votes based on what her husband tells her to. To say he's the leader of Save Tullahoma, I didn't know Save Tullahoma had an official membership roster, but if you go to the Save Tullahoma Facebook page, where you do have to be a member to participate there, there's aldermen on this board that are on that page, but it's not her. So, to say that she was acting on behalf of Save Tullahoma or her husband or for her own financial gain, none of those hold water.
Any further comments? I'd like to make a comment from the chair regarding Ms. Wilson as an alderman. From your participation on this board, I would never have known that you were a builder. So that's just, I've never took that comical comment. It's sort of foreign to just think that, in my opinion, that's an issue. Anyway, we're ready for a vote. And the vote is does it warrant further investigation? And that passes 6-0. Okay, number 6, formal complaint against Alderman Almacher for violations of Section 8 of the Code of Ethics for attempts to secure privileges and expectations for herself pertaining to the building of her home. The motion. Motion by Barrett, seconded by Mann. Alderman Barrett.
I would again like to motion to postpone until I have the information from the FOIA request.
We have a motion to postpone. That was seconded by Mann.
That's just from the original motion.
That's the original.
Okay, we've got a motion. We're looking at number 6 right now.
And there's no second.
We have a motion from Barry and a second from Mann.
No, there's no second.
There was no second. So that's for the original motion to discuss. And then Daniel made a motion, Alderman Barry made a motion, and then I did not second that.
It failed.
It fails for lack of a second. Your motion to postpone fails for lack of a second. It's not showing up on my board this way.
I know.
Okay. We're back to the original item number 6, complaint against Almacher for securing attempts to secure privileges and expectations for herself pertaining to building her home. I need a second. Need a motion for that.
I think we already did that.
We have a motion.
We have a motion and we have a second. Discussion. You ready to vote? Does that warrant further investigation? And that's 6-3, 6-4, no.
4-2.
Excuse me. Yes. 4-2. No further investigation. Number 7, a formal complaint against Alderman General Almacher for violation for oath of office. Need a motion. Motion from Barry, seconded by Mathis. Alderman Barry, you recognize your motion.
Yeah, I mean, don't have anything else to say.
You don't want to talk about Facebook? You don't want to talk about Facebook usage?
Well, I mean, if you're going to get on to me about it, then you need to get on to this one about it, so.
I just asked you.
And I just post, like, recordings of you.
Like, that's fine. I just asked you if you want to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I think that violated, I think that violated the oath to go into private citizens' Facebook photos and just because that you don't like them politically. Now, I may call somebody ignorant, or I may disagree with them vehemently. Sorry.
You're not recognized. We're voting on does it warrant further investigation? And that's 5-1, no. And that concludes 2383 and 83. We have an item on the agenda tonight, item number 2384. A motion to consider rescinding the vote of ordinance number 1593, an ordinance to adopt the revised 2011 Tullahoma Comprehensive Plan for passage on first through reading. That is perhaps it should be a motion to reconsider, but I'll hear a motion if you want to change the wording there.
We already did.
We already did that,
That's okay. We've got a motion to reconsider.
One of you need a motion.
Which version are?
Yeah, that's
Question, is this the Planning Commission's version or the CPDC's version that we're voting to approve or reconsider?
So to reconsider,
It was the motion to consider the Planning Commission's version, and that was wanted to be amended, and the amendment failed. And then we went back to, and then the Planning Commission's version failed as well. So they both failed.
I'd like to make a motion.
We got to get this motion first.
Okay.
So, yeah, okay. The motion that to reconsider is...
We can second and then discuss, and now we can make a motion to do something different.
Yeah, I'm sorry, what?
You can make a motion to do something different now.
We got a motion. And a second by Almacher. Almacher, you're recognized.
Okay, so I think I would like to now make a motion to reconsider adopting until the new 2025 plan, the CPDC's version as corrected in its entirety, not the Planning Commission's revised version. I would like to revise the Planning Commission's versions for their changes back to the CPDC's version and adopt that plan.
Would you entertain friendly amendments? It's friendly, I promise.
Alderman Berry, you're recognized next.
What I would like to...
Well, I think I have to get a second, and then I can revise it.
I'm not able to...
Second.
Yeah, no, I gotcha.
Yeah.
So, second by Alderman.
Second.
I do have a second. Okay.
You're recognized. Okay. That's your motion, is to adopt the Planning Commission, not adopt the CPDC version of the document for the 2011 plan revision.
Yes.
That's the motion. Alderman Jerry, you're recognized.
What I would like to proffer is, instead of just adopting the entire thing or getting rid of the entire thing, there were two changes that I think are amenable to the members of the CPDC. One was striking I think it was Appendix C or 3, that has a paragraph that references the Tullahoma 2040 plan and a page in the 2040 plan. So I would offer that instead of striking everything, we say, keep that. And then a second one was on the mixed-use commercial. It included the urban streets, which was Jackson and 55, and then the Planning Commission amended it to include, only to include Cedar Lane from Wilson Avenue to Jackson Street, which is in that airport area. And so what I would ask as a friendly amendment is, instead of just striking everything, say strike everything but those two.
And your position is to adopt those into the CDPC plan?
Keep those two recommendations from the Planning Commission and only those two recommendations, and then strike the others.
I have a question about an upcoming project that has nothing to do with me, but I'm just curious. Mr. Worsham, you mentioned a project on Cedar Lane by Harton Realty Partners. Could that potentially impact that?
It's currently zoned properly for that.
Okay.
Describe again, I understand the Cedar Lane corridor. Can you describe the first change that you want? I don't really understand that.
I don't have the plan in front of me. If you look at page here, there's a hole in the page number. Appendix C, where it talks about the demographics, it talks about commutation patterns, and it says, although this issue was addressed previously on page 14 from the transportation perspective, it is addressed here from a demographic and economic perspective. That references a page inside of the 2040 plan. So the Planning Commission recommended just striking that entire paragraph.
That's agreeable.
Would you consider?
I'm amenable to the changes. So with those.
Can you show me what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, essentially, we have to go through an amendment.
Do you want to see two?
No, I'll amend my motion, yes.
To accept the two recommendations. Cedar Lane and
Adding Cedar Lane to the mixed use and striking that reference to the 2040 plan.
Is it in here?
Okay.
Yes, I'm amenable to those.
The other?
The other one is to keep the mixed use from only on Jackson and 55, but extend that from Wilson Avenue to Jackson Street, that Cedar Lane corridor.
Okay, we're ready to vote on the motion? Oh, we're ready to vote on the amendment at this point.
We have to vote on the amendment and then
The amendment is to make Alderman Berry's suggested changes.
No, I just have revised my motion. Are you amenable to your second and a revision to my motion to adopt that with those changes? Okay, then we only have to vote one time.
Okay.
Vote on the amendment, vote on the motion as amended. Any further comments, Alderman Berry? Ready to vote on CDPC. It passes 7-0.
It got ugly, but we still found compromise.
And we have a planning director that can have something to work with now. Very good. Item number 2385. Consider declining the South Anderson Street Transportation Alternative Grant Plan. Motion by Berry, seconded by Armarker.
Oh, I did not motion.
I think that was the last one.
Anyone, any comments on that?
Wait, this, I need a second.
Barry, you recognize?
Yeah. So I know that, and I had talked with you about this previously, but I don't think that we some of the concern was the amount of things that are in our budget this year. SROs, our increase in some of the roads, and pay raises, which are extremely important. But this project, it's a 5-year, so the investments that we talked about for this, that we had looked at for the $600,000 from the city, that doesn't need to come out of this budget. We have 3 years. The initial term is from October 1st, 22 to September 30th, 2025. We have 3 years to secure the clearances, the certifications, the right-of-ways, and all those pieces before we really, I mean, we'll have to spend some money, but we're not talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars out of this budget. And then to finish it, if you've met that in the next 2 years, then we have until September 30th of 2027 to complete the project. So we're talking about $650,000, $700,000 over a period of 5 years to look at, say it was $1 million on the city's behalf, to look at this project. And it's a project that South Anderson Street is, there's 150 to 200,000 people that come through that corridor in Tullahoma every year. And that's the first thing they see. And it's embarrassing, right? I mean, that area is, no offense to anybody or businesses on there, but that area is embarrassing. The road is in terrible, terrible, terrible shape, and it needs to be done anyway. The only reason we didn't do it 2 years ago was because we had looked at the Cedar Lane project, and then we were looking at this Anderson project to kind of get all that in one big shot, because you can't, and I know that this grant doesn't pay for paving the roads, it just pays for the sidewalks and pieces, but we're looking at the city will never, ever on its own be able to afford the changes that this grant is talking about. It's talking about building the multi-use path from the west side of South Anderson. That's going to stretch all the way up to East Lincoln on that side, and it'll stretch all the way up to the Hands-On Science Center on that side. And so it connects that entire part of town to our downtown and gives them connectivity where they don't have that at that time. It includes redoing that pedestrian bridge right there. It includes the ADA upgrades that we're going to have to do at some point in time anyway, but we're going to have to do it all on our own dime if we say no to this. It includes the drainage. Have you ever driven down South Anderson Street when it's rained? Inches of water. Inches of water. This pays for the drainage improvements on that pathway. It pays for the curb and the gutter pieces. It pays for the signage. It pays for the pavement markings. It doesn't pay for the road, doesn't pay for the right-of-way, and doesn't pay for the engineering. And that is going to cost the city several $100,000. But we've got 5 years to break that project into. So what I would ask is that, and we don't have, there's not a deadline on us saying no or yes, right? We need to do it at some point, so they'll release the funds. If we're not going to do it, at some point we need to tell them so they'll release the funds and another community can get those funds. But what I would ask is, let's get through this budget season. Let's see where we're at. We may end up, we're counting on, in our budget, putting $1 million in there for the SROs, which we have to count on, but hopefully if Governor Lee comes through, it's not that we're going to have an influx of money, but if we get that money through the state to pay for that, and then we got to take $100,000 of that and then put it into an engineering or a right-of-way acquisition piece, then we'll have the funds to do that. We also, I would proffer, and I'm going to say postpone so we can talk about this later, we put $1.2 million into the ARPA for the Jackson Streetscape. We've kind of minimized that down because we took some money out of that. And I don't know that everything could go for that, and maybe none of it, but we could at least talk and see if maybe there's funds in there to where we can do some of that. So what I would ask is that let's postpone this.
You make a motion.
I will make a motion I don't want to do it before anybody else has a chance to talk. I'll make a motion to postpone this until we have had time to.
I think we're all okay with that. Motion to postpone, do second. Okay.
Got a motion and a second to postpone. Any further discussion on postponing this item? I will tell you that weekly I get a request from TDOT as whether we're going to do this project or not. So they're anxious to know whether we're going to do it, but I think the postponing is a good idea at this point.
Do we have they given us a deadline? Do we know of any deadline? Okay. Let's
just by 2025.
Let's take the proper time to make an informed decision.
We have a motion to postpone and a second. Yes, for postpone. That passes 7-0. Item number 2386, consider a discussion of actions of the Planning Commission, parameters of liability and policies that affect employees and governing authority, and setting expectations for our planning department and consistent with our policy. Your motion. Alderman Marker made the motion. Mathis second. Margaret, I just believe this is your motion. We don't have any other background on this.
Yes, okay. So this is about some information that was put on, or an agenda item that was put on the last Planning Commission's agenda that had to do with, it would have been basically to hear it, and it was postponed, and it goes to the next meeting now because he was the person it affected was unavailable. But in order to hear it, it would have been a direct violation of a resolution that this board had passed. And so I think that this board needs to set some parameters that, and then there's some question now, is the Planning Commission an autonomous authority? Is the Planning Department an autonomous authority? Is Mr. Worsham, can he direct the Planning Department to go against something that the board sets? And I mean, I don't know the answer to all of these questions. Or can somebody say, well, I just think that's void, or I don't like that, so you don't have to pay attention to that. I believe if this board sets a policy, we are, in our charter, we are the supervisory and legislative authority, which means we set the policy and you administrate and go along with it. If you disagree with it, I think there's a way that you can challenge that policy, but I'm not sure you can do that without going to court and doing it. And I don't think I think it's directly, insubordination for the Planning Commission or any other board to bring something before them that they don't have the authority to bring based on that resolution. And that resolution had to do with the setback requirements. We passed a resolution recognizing the RLUIPA, the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act, and that setback requirements would not be enforceable on religious institutions based on that superseding federal law. I didn't create the law, we're just recognizing the law there. And this board voted to pass that resolution. Next thing I know, they have a variance request for a setback on a religious organization coming back to the Planning Commission. It was put back on the agenda. I just think that's inappropriate. Can anybody else give me some insight? What do you guys think?
Attorney Worsham, you're recognized.
This is quite a detailed subject, and Ms. Almer's brought up without any prior knowledge of mine as to that, and it may merit a lot of discussion, but I don't think this is the time and the place to do that. I think we need to have a discussion about the authority of the Planning Commission and the Tennessee Code created there. We don't create that. The law recreates that. And also the issue that she's brought about that resolution is a well-considered opinion of the courts that a ordinance cannot be amended in any way by resolution. And that's simply the ruling that I made. You all tried by resolution to amend the zoning ordinance. You can't do that. Sometimes some things are just well-settled law, and that's well-settled law. And so I think that if we were to discuss this whole thing about the planning commission, all that sort of thing, we ought to do that. And it's appropriate for you all to do it, but I don't think tonight is a good place to do that. I don't know exactly what she wants to talk about besides that one thing, and she's absolutely wrong about that. But I'll be happy to discuss this all with Mary Santiago at another time when we have some parameters to what discussion is going to be involved in and that sort of thing.
Thank you, sir.
So does the thing that, the variance request that's going before the Planning Commission, does it have to come back before our board again?
Can I make one correction? That's a misunderstanding. That just to that point, we did not, Mr. Worsham, we did not amend the ordinance. The ordinance is still in place for setback requirements. We didn't amend it in any way other than to say there are certain institutions that are not subject to those requirements based on a superseding exemption in federal law. We are recognizing a separate law. We are not changing our laws. The setback requirements are still in existence. We just can't enforce them if they are going to be a substantial burden based on the RLU IPA. And I found the resolution that we passed was that would be a substantial burden, according to this board, on religious organizations. And whether you agree with it or disagree with it or dislike it, Mr. Worsham, this board has passed it, and it would be up to a citizen to challenge that, not our city attorney or our planning commission. It is directly insubordinate.
City attorney.
She wants to debate an issue that I don't think we should debate tonight. If the board wants to consider this, I think we ought to do that at an appropriate time so that we can be, first of all, she's wrong about the federal law exempting religious organizations for this kind of thing. I've researched the case law about that, but I'm not prepared tonight to discuss all of those things. That's something that if you want to discuss it, we should, and put it on the agenda for an appropriate discussion. But not like this, with no backup information in or anything else. This is a random type thing we should do.
I believe that there has been this item, which does not have any background with it, is to consider a discussion, and we've had that discussion.
No, but we're not done with the discussion, Mr. Mayor. There are people waiting.
Alderman.
Yeah, a couple of terms that she used was insubordination. The Planning Commission does not report to this board. They are governed by Tennessee Code annotated. The laws that they abide by are set by the state of Tennessee. So if anybody has a problem with how the Planning Commission operates or what laws they have and what their authority is, then you need to take that up with our state representative and our state senator and have them change it in Nashville. Second, I believe that that resolution is invalid. We had opinions from our attorney. We had opinions that he sent us from third-party opinions. And I'm going to go with those. I also sit on the Planning Commission, and I guarantee you when this item comes back again, I will have no problems taking that item back up, because this board doesn't regulate what happens on the Planning Commission, and if somebody on this board has a problem with it, then you can, I would say, sue the Planning Commission.
This board doesn't regulate.
Any further discussion?
What about the 2011 plan? We absolutely do regulate it. That's kind of the point. We set the policy. They administrate it.
Not when it's illegal.
It's not illegal. That resolution is not illegal, and you need to challenge it in court. If you do that, then you're giving them a lawsuit against the city. Why would you do that? Why would you hand somebody a lawsuit? We're getting really good at that these days and almost provoking it. Why?
At this point, this item was to consider discussion, and we've had that discussion, and I don't think it warrants any further discussion. Moving on. Resolution number 1938. A resolution for defining the term removal, quote, removal from our charter, referring to the case and to be a resident. For Tennessee Code annotated TCA 2-2-122. That's your motion, that's your amendment, that's your item, Alderman Walker.
needs a motion in a second.
It needs a motion in a second, and I'll explain why I added it.
We've got a motion from Matt Wilson and a second by Nan. Alderman Mark, you recognize.
Well, I don't think it's appropriate for me to vote, even though my court case is over. I do think this is appropriate for this board to discuss, considering, this is a discussion as it defines a term in our charter. And if that term is not meant to be consistent with state law, then it needs to be stated and written somewhere and adopted. If it is consistent with state law, then there should have never been a case against me, nor should there be against any future alderman. We need to just make sure that we are clear for people going forward. I'm not going to vote in this, and I'm not even going to participate further in the discussion, but I do think it's a discussion that this board needs to have and define that term.
Alderman Barry.
The item says resolution defining. We don't have a copy of resolution, so we can't vote on a resolution this evening. But that being said, I 100% agree with Alderman Allmarker that we should. I know that's 3 times tonight. That's dangerous. I know.
I have a question for our...
Can I finish? I do agree that we do need to clarify that. We do need to specify it, but I think that we should do that through the charter, where the charter defines it, and let's just do it that way and be done with it. You do it by resolution, any board can come along and just undo it, right? And I don't know that you can define terms in a charter with a resolution, but we change the charter, that's a lot harder, right? So let's just do it from foundations.
I was going to ask our city attorney to address that issue. Charter changes take some time.
This is an easy one. A resolution can't change the charter. This is the charter provision. The appropriate way to do it is for this board to enact a resolution with the help of Mintas, because they help us with the language, asking the legislature to provide a private act that amend our charter to make the provisions in our charter correspond with the state law about this particular issue. So there's a process that we go through when we amend our charter. We did that when we created TU8 and TUB 3-4 years ago, as you might recall, and we've done it other times. We did that again when we changed our election cycles, and there's a process for doing this. And if this board wants to provide or create a resolution, either by ourselves or with the help of Mintas, with the language that we think that they will adopt, and send that to the legislature, we can do that. And then we can make it conform with provisions in the state law so that there is no conflict. Because now there is a conflict, and under the law, the city charter does prevail, or rather than general law, if we're a private act city.
This time I'd entertain a motion to ask our city attorney to put together a resolution to go before the General Assembly to change our charter.
Now, can you recognize the people to speak first?
Alderman Allmarker.
Yes, no, I don't, it's not about changing our charter. Our charter is adequate in what it says, but if you don't mind, I'd like to, let's see, read to you specifically what it says. It says that no person shall be an alderman unless he be a citizen of the state of Tennessee and a bona fide resident of the city for which he is elected. Any alderman after his election removing from the city thereby vacates his said office. So the question that I'm proposing to you, and I didn't draft a resolution because I don't think it's appropriate for me to draft this resolution. I think that would be appropriate for Mr. Worsham to assist us with that. We're not changing the charter. We're simply defining what does that mean, thereby removing himself from the city. Are we saying removing as in, if you have, 2 houses or you go on vacation for too long, or are we saying it just means that you cease to be a resident, which I think we all know it means that you cease to be a resident. But if that is directly in line with the state code, that's all that we need to make sure that we understand, because that was a point of contention and in the lawsuit that I was in. And the reason I'm doing this in a public meeting is because I felt like this needed to be said publicly, not privately, to any elected official. And just because I am an elected official doesn't mean that I shouldn't be able to take part in the discussion as a constitutional representative. However, I will not draft a resolution and I will not vote on it. This is for you guys to discuss, not necessarily to change the charter, but to define what does it mean.
Okay, at this time, I'd entertain a motion to ask the city attorney to draft a resolution for the state legislature to create the term, to define the term, what it means to be a resident. By charter. Alderman, yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, I will repeat. We can create a resolution, but the resolution is to ask that our charter be amended. We can't amend the charter by resolution here without action by the state legislature. That's the appropriate way to do it. I have no objection to doing that, but we need to do it the appropriate way, because the charter at this time creates the litigation that we're involved in now, involving Ms. Allmacher. The case is not over. The judge has been asked to reconsider it, and if the ruling does not change, it can still be appealed. We have no control over that because the state attorney general is the attorney representing those particular actions against Ms. Allmacher. So I still suggest that we do it the appropriate way. And I'll prepare the resolution with the help of MTAS the way they suggested they do it, because I will check with them about that.
And that's what we've got, okay, that's what our current motion is, to ask the city attorney to draft that resolution. Alderman Barry, you're recognized.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to amend Resolution 1938 to say, ask the city attorney to draft a resolution defining the term removal in our charter all the way to 122 to send to the state legislature for consideration.
Okay, we have a motion to amend. Need a second. Second by Alderman Mathis.
We would need to approve that resolution before it would be sent.
Yes, we have to approve everything.
We have a motion by Barry, seconded by Mathis. Any further discussion? Vote yes or no. We're ready to vote. Passes 6-1. Last one we received from Alderman Allmacher is 1939, a resolution asking the district attorney to retire.
That was removed.
Or no. Beer board.
It's early yet.
There haven't been someone sitting here.
9 o'clock.
I checked.
With that, we'll adjourn the board meeting and go to the beer board. We'll call the beer board to order. Any public comments for the beer board? Seeing done, we'll go to the agenda for the beer board. We only have one thing on the agenda, that's the consent agenda. That's the minutes from the April 24 meeting. Entertain a motion. Motion by Barry. Second by the man. Any discussion? Not vote yes or no. And that passes 7-0 after.
What? Oh.
This is, we're about to have a
Yes.
That's right. Passes 7-0.
They'll sleep there.
Your board's adjourned. Have a good evening. Hey,